Everybody, welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Happy to be with you, as is always the case. The show is brought to you today and every day by our friends over at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. You got French Open on the television today. You've got Women's College World Series on the television today. You can actually see, if you tune in right now, you can see the vaunted Texas Tech pitcher that allegedly cost Cody Campbell $1 million in NIL money. Najari Kennedy is her name, and it's fascinating to see what NIL has done in the college sports space. We continue to observe that, to watch that. It's also fascinating to see what it's doing in the sort of broadcasting, coaching, the spheres that radiate out from the actual competition in college sport, right? College coaching contracts change. The conversation around an expanded college football playoff changes, an expanded March Madness tournament. All of that changes as these universities, these athletic departments try to figure out how to replace revenue that now they have to share with student athletes. So they don't get to hold all of it like they used to. Now, it is a paltry sum. It is a small percentage shared, but still the bottom line is the bottom line. And as the bottom line conversations continue, well, so does the potential for political intervention and things like that. We're going to get to that on the show today, as a new bipartisan bill has been proposed to, quote, save college sports. We'll have an update on the men's side of the French Open. A big surprise and a huge upset happened there. Gordy Chiesa is going to be in studio with us in about half an hour. We'll keep him till 12:30, so a full hour in studio with Gordy Chiesa. Lots to discuss in the NBA playoffs and, of course, the upcoming NBA draft as well. Speaking of that draft, we'll have an ESPN draft insider. Jeremy Woo is going to hang out with us at 1 o'clock as the Utah Jazz, the Washington Wizards, the teams at the top of the draft start to figure out, or finish figuring out would maybe be the more accurate characterization, who they're going to pick at the top of the draft. We'll zero in on some things with Jeremy Woo. If you're looking for a place to watch any of today's sports, I recommend you go down to 1717 South Main. Big Willie's has lunch specials today. They've got drink specials every single day. You tell them OC sent you, they'll take extra special care of you. I'm feeling like tater tots. I'm on like a tater tots run right now. I had a nice daddy-daughter date with my oldest yesterday. We went out and saw the new Star Wars movie, the Mandalorian versus Grogu film, which, if you pay any attention to social media, is just like a complete disaster from a revenue standpoint, and people are declaring the Star Wars universe dead and all these things. And I think that somewhere along the way, what we've done with these nerd culture and like pop culture movie phenomenons is we've expected that the writing, the directing, everything just be absolutely fantastic. And we've expected what are effectively children's movies to be Oscar-worthy. Look, is it the best Star Wars film I've ever seen? Far from. Did my 7-year-old enjoy it? Yes. A little scary in some parts, by the way. So I think that they should have decided if this was going to be a kid's movie or a grown-ups movie, and they didn't really figure that out. In any case, we did that, and then we went and grabbed some food and tater tots, man. I'm on a tater tot run, like I said. You can get tater tots down at Big Willie's. You can also get their tater kegs, which are like a gigantic tater tot on steroids. It's got like the cream cheese, the jalapeno. It's delightful. So when you head down there, tell them you heard about it on the Sean O'Connell Show, and they'll hook you up.
I gotta chime in a second on Mandalorian and Grogu.
Did you see it?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
But just your comment about they need to decide whether it's a kids or a grown-ups movie. It is PG-13, so I think they decided it's decidedly for 13 and older.
Sure. I think the issue with the Baby Yoda character, the Grogu character, is that it's like so adorable that
kids are gonna love him.
That it makes it kind of like kid friendly, but then maybe it's not. Like there's some special effects in there, like some of the creatures are like genuinely very scary.
Yeah,
they're creepy looking,
and that must be. I'm just saying. I think that's probably the PG-13 element. Well, since it's just PG-13, there's still lots of like kid-friendly stuff. That's the issue with that thing. And I'm not saying that as like I'm a PG-13 and older truther. Like I grew up when I was 8, 9, 10 years old watching movies that according to the ratings are or I should be older to watch those, right?
You remember what Titanic did in a PG-13 movie?
Right.
You remember that?
Or like 80s when it was just PG and R, so PG was like either really family friendly or basically very family friendly in a lot of ways. So the ratings, a lot of fluidity there, but I think that's probably why it's PG-13 and not PG, is because they are putting some of those things that maybe kids aren't going to be so thrilled about.
Well, I'm not going to try to turn today's show into anything like a Star Wars breakdown show, but I think what we're seeing.
Did you like it though?
I enjoyed it just fine. Yeah. I go to these movies, right? I go to like a Marvel movie to just be entertained.
Yeah.
I just want to be entertained. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking. I'm not expecting it to be something that's like overly thought-provoking. With Star Wars, I want my Star Wars stuff to be to like stir some nostalgia for me.
Yeah.
And this one does, but also doesn't. My demand for anything Star Wars related, basically, I need a lightsaber in there. I need the Force in everything. Spoiler alert, there's a little bit of the Force.
Grogu does his thing, right?
There's no lightsabers at all. There's not a lightsaber. There's not a mention of lightsabers. For me, I need that in Star Wars. And again, there's probably people out there like, just what are you talking about? Andor's the best Star Wars property, and there's none of that in Andor. Yeah, that's why I disagree with you. I don't think Andor is the best Star Wars property. I think Andor is just like an espionage tale told with Star Wars aesthetics. It's not Star Wars enough for me.
I loved season 1 of Andor. I have yet to finish season 2 because it's been hard for me to get into it as much.
But. And like for me though, the conversation outside of it's the same thing with pop culture and with entertainment as it is with sports. The conversation outside of sports this time of year gets to be a little bit more fascinating, especially as it pertains to football, to college football. The NFL is also in that category. And I'm paying more attention to the conversations around it. I don't know why. I mean, well, I guess I do know why. The algorithm feeds me a lot of this breakdown of The Mandalorian and Grogu and people just being like, here's my dissertation on why Disney has killed Star Wars. And it's something that's really fascinating. I had this conversation over the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, hanging out with my wife's best friend's family. And there's this acceptance that that change is inevitable and that progress based on things like the maximum pursuit of profit is inevitable and therefore should be expected. Job loss to AI is inevitable and should just therefore be accepted. And I push back on a lot of these things, and we're seeing it in college football, right, where it's just like, well, this is all inevitable. The Super League is inevitable, so we should just accept it. It's like, well, should we, though? Because doing that over and over and over again has kind of got us to where we are now, where you're looking at certain teams, certain conferences, certain coaches, certain players who are not being served by the greater good or being served at all in the world of college athletics. The student athlete at certain institutions, and I'm not just talking about like D3 spots because you are always going to be the underdog there. I'm talking about there are like power schools, including maybe Utah and BYU fitting into this category, Arizona State, Kansas. Like some of these teams are being kind of put into the same category where it's like you are just supposed to accept that you're not as important as you used to be. You're not as important as your peers that have moved on to bigger conferences. You're not going to get the money that they get. You're not going to get the players that they get. There was a really interesting article in the Utah. Any Utah. Oh. If you think the other alternative here, and this is kind of what happened with the Star Wars and Disney thing. People are just like, yeah, see, as soon as you turned it over to a corporate entity like that, as soon as it became a Disney thing, all they care about is the bottom line. And so the art and the mastery and the imagination of a Star Wars universe no longer matters in that world. And it's all about profitability. And they were just they realized they hadn't put out a major movie in 7 years. So they told Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, they said, instead of doing another series, another season of this thing that is wildly popular on Disney Plus, you're going to condense it all into a major motion picture that we can put out because this Starfighter project is taking too long and because he has completely destroyed this. Right? There's this acceptance that's just equal these things. I don't just as college sports fans in general kind of take that. You're like, I think we should casually accept that sports betting is going to be an inevitable influence that takes over all of these professional and college sports leagues. Like a lot of people are just kind of like, yeah, man, sports betting's been happening forever. Now it's legal. And so just get on board or get out of the way. And you've been one that's like, well, hold on a minute. I don't know that we should just take that attitude with it. And I respect that because
I don't know. I'm not one that ever was willing to go into that world, I guess. And so I feel like sports can be just as enjoyable, just as intense without you putting your life savings on the line. That's an exaggeration, people. I know that not everybody is losing everything when they place a bet. That's the argument. European soccer, the that's why it's intense. It's intense to care about.
Gone betting slips place in Europe, right? It's exactly casino 7 a branch,
and I imagine it's also like at horse racing at the racetrack, so they've always had the betting windows. It's that sort of thing.
It literally looks like you're walking by and you're just like, what is this? Is this the branch of a bank? And it's not. It's a bet shop, right? And it's exactly what you think it is, right? You see exactly the cast of characters that you think you're going to see there. And I've been to these in many different European cities now. It's just there's like there's the James Peterson guy who's just a dude who's like, yeah, I'm going to come in. I'm going to put a 5-pound note on my favorite team or whatever. And then there's every once in a while you see someone that looks like they're doing a good job of this and pull up in like a very fancy car. And then
they're the pros.
And then a lot of what he is the guy who's just like, oh, you did this. This is not good for your life, right?
It's so in the rivals and
so this broad spectrum of whether or not accepted, things to be seen as inevitable, and we should just roll over and either die with them. We should die on a hill. Like I find myself as I age being a lot more typical of what people think. Like I'm shaking my fist and yelling at the clouds about a lot of these changes. even as the intellectual part of me is just like, well, hold on. This was always going to happen, and you need to get on board with it. I'm still an idealist in some ways where I don't want it to just be like, well, if it makes money, we have to accept it. If it makes dollars, it makes sense for everyone. No, it doesn't. We have been conditioned and brainwashed into believing that that is the truth, especially in American society. If it yields a greater profit margin, then it is good. Well, no, it's not. Not if it costs 10 people their jobs, okay? Not if it removed the ability of 10 families to go to bed safe and stable at night. It's not better that your shareholders at your mega bank don't have to pay a bunch of mid-level analysts anymore because Grok can do that for them now. It's not better. It's not better that USC is flying to New Jersey to take on Rutgers in conference contests. We know that is not better. And for everyone to just be like, well, yeah, but it makes more money, so that's why we should accept it. All right, well, you know who benefits from it more than anyone almost is coaches, because these intense amounts of money coming in translate to coaches' salaries more than they translate to anything else. Huge, huge dollar amounts in these coaches' salaries, and even they find reasons to complain about it. Even they point out and just say, man, this actually really sucks. We don't actually like this. And they're cashing $12 million a year in salary, and they're still like, this was not better for college football. Was it Mike Elko at the SEC meetings that said, you know what? You know why everyone's saying yes to 2014 college football playoff? Not because it's better for the sport, because it's better for us as individuals. I want 24 teams because then I won't get fired. He knows it's not better for the sport. They all know it's not better for the sport. It doesn't make for a more interesting regular season. It doesn't make for a more interesting playoff, really. Maybe in some cases it does. But a coach feels like, unless you're at one of these like crazy demanding blue bloods, if you're at USC or you're at Oregon or you're at Ohio State or you're at Alabama, you could make a college football playoff and they'll still fire you if you don't get far enough in that college football playoff. But remember how we went through yesterday and we said there were 80 teams that would have participated? Like, if you're at Utah and you make a college football playoff every other year, you have a job for 21 years if you want.
I mean, yeah, think about the obvious comparison is the mid-major coach or the not as high a prestige Power 4 major college basketball coach, right? They can say, okay, you never made a Final Four, but they can say I went to the tournament 16 times.
If you're at Utah State and you make the tournament every other year, you are never going to get fired. No chance. Yeah. If you're at Arizona State as a basketball coach and you make the NCAA tournament every other year,
but you lose in the first or second round.
You're still
every
a
year.
Tournament coach, right? I mean, it used to be at the University of Utah that if you didn't make it far enough in the NCAA tournament, people were going to start looking at you with a side eye. Now,
just make it.
Now, if Alex Jensen makes this team a tournament team every year and they lose in the first round, oh, we got to the second round, back to the first round, oh, we missed next year. And I mean,
Sweet 16.
He's pushing. You can push into decades of coaching if you check that box. And Mike Elko was the only guy at SEC Media Days to say it. He said, it's not better for the sport, but it's better for us as individuals. If I'm a college football playoff coach, my agent that gets to go to the school and say, remember how we put that in the contract? There's a bonus there. And that job security stuff that we talked about, as long as you make this 2014 playoff, there's not a lot of schools that are going to be like, well, you have to make it into the third round of that playoff.
You got to make it a semifinal team, the college football Final Four.
You got to be a Final Four. I mean, there are some schools that are like that, but those schools are always going to be like that no matter how big the college football playoff is. So this acceptance of all things that come with more revenue as positive changes is something that is forced upon fans, is shoved down the throat of fans, and weirdly, because I think largely because of social media and how ubiquitous the conversation of experts is in our lives, we can see that 30-second quote on our TikTok, on our Instagram, on our Facebook, on our Twitter, and we can say, yep, that's now my opinion. People just get lost in this, like, if it's making more money, it's progress for the sport. And I'm not a political guy. I don't like the political circus, the performative nature of where we're at right now with Republican and Democrat stuff. But there is a bipartisan bill put together now after months and months of conversation. They call it the Save College Sports Act. And there's several different things. It's a group of U.S. senators. Ted Cruz is the biggest name on there. Maria Cantwell, who's a Democrat. They've reached across the aisle. They have joined hands, and they are talking about protecting college sports with this act that would provide the NCAA with an antitrust exemption so they can enforce several rules that have been challenged in recent years. And those challenges have been important because those challenges in a lot of cases have been won and have created legal precedent for things like unfettered open transfer. This would create an antitrust exemption to where your lawyer has to find a different hill to die on, a different bone to pick with the rules, because a lot of the reasons that these battles have been won legally, to my understanding, is because they're like, well, this is an illegal labor practice that only exists because of this monopoly that the NCAA has. This antitrust exemption would say it's a monopoly because it has to be a monopoly. This is all the colleges working together and trying to come to an agreement on a system that would work. We've heard this several times before. One-time transfer with some rare exceptions. One-time transfer. The next time you have to sit out and there's a penalty. I have pushed for this. I've advocated for this. I think it is the happy medium where if you're a college player and you're someone trying to climb the ladder, you say, you know what? I served my 1 year, my 2 years of prove-it time at Utah State, at Weber State, at Colorado State, and now there's a big payday waiting for me because I have proven myself at this level. I'm going to transfer after a significant amount of thought. I'm going to transfer to this bigger school. I'm going to do this in order to get myself into a better situation. And the NCAA and the conference and the school say, that's fine. We wish you well. This is happening one time. So you better make sure that you're happy with the coaching staff, the NIL arrangement, the facilities, the academic programs, whatever, because the next time you want to transfer, you are going to have to sit. The exception to this is, again, one that feels very common sense. If a coach gets fired or a coach leaves for a new position and you have been committed to play for that coach, now you get another exemption. If I use my one-time transfer to go to the University of Utah in 2025, and the next year I want to play for Kyle Whittingham, and the next year Kyle Whittingham is at Michigan, and I decide I don't want to stay and play for Morgan Scalley, I'm given an opportunity to go back into the transfer portal and to transfer penalty-free. This is, again, a very intuitive response to the obvious question that's coming, like, whoa, why do I have to go work for the boss that I didn't choose in the first place? Why do I have to go play for the coach that I didn't choose to play for in the first place? I committed to play for this staff, for this person. I don't want to play there if that person's not there. Okay, fine. You're back in the transfer portal. So you still would have a transfer portal. You would not have 3,000 players at a time in the transfer portal because you're burning an asset that you only have one of. You're treating it as an individual, as a college sports participant, like teams treat their first-round draft picks. This is a very, very careful decision-making process we have to go through because I don't get a mulligan here. So that's the number one thing that the antitrust exemption in the Save College Sports bill would grant as a new and, more importantly, enforceable rule. It is going with the recent trend of a 5-year to play 5, a maximum 5-year plan, age-based. Again, the same loopholes and strictures that we talked about. Religious service, military service, maternity leave covered here. Former professional athletes, this one is big for basketball more than for football. Former professional athletes flat out forbidden to play college sports. You can't bring the European guy over. You can't bring the G League guy back down to NCAA basketball. Interestingly enough here, and this might be the thing that stops it from going through, schools would be prohibited from poaching a coach from another school during the season. So the coaching carousel would only open after the season was done.
The Lane Kiffin rule?
You have to have your season over before you can be poached.
Now, is this your season or your the whole season?
It just says the season. Now,
I'm guessing it's the Lane Kiffin thing might still happen then because they'll just wait. I'm guessing it'll be regular season because postseason's not guaranteed.
The bill continues and talks about an enforceable salary cap, which, I mean, we've already tried to put that in place with the revenue share, but it's not enforceable. Interestingly enough, this bill leaves the College Sports Commission in place as the entity of enforcement and power, saying that they are still going to go through their process of review and decide whether or not teams and universities are just doing a pay-for-play situation here, or this is an actual legitimate business reason for the NIL contract to come through. The thing that I struggle with here is, you know how easy it is to make it look like a legitimate business reason instead of just a bag of cash? It's like the easiest thing to do. Why doesn't everyone do it? Why don't you find the car dealership in Salt Lake City? Why don't you find the sports bar in Provo? Bad example. Why don't you
Strap Tank shout out?
Why don't you go to like the local burger joint and you just say, "Hey, I need 1 hour."
Why don't you go to the ice cream parlor in Provo, maybe?
Yeah. Creamery, shout out to you. Graham Canyon, it's an excellent ice cream.
Yeah.
You go to the place and you say, "I need 1 hour. We're going to bring in a student group that's got cameras and microphones, and we're going to film endorsement commercials with everyone we want to pay." And you tell the athletes, I need 1 hour of your time. I need you to show up at the Creamery for 1 hour. I need you to eat a cougar tail and smile about it, and we're going to put you in the commercial. That's going to
run throughout the college sports season.
You're going to sign a document that says your name, image, and likeness. Where does that come from? That's what it's supposed to be for.
Oh.
Is licensed out to the Creamery for this commercial, and we're going to give you an absurdly out of proportion endorsement contract for that. You cool, kid? And then the College Sports Commission has no leg to stand on, because what are they going to say? That's not market value. And then the Creamery can be like, "No, that's what I wanted to pay for it." Done. I know it's 2 extra steps, but the fact that schools and collectives and athletes and universities are not demanding that everyone who receives money from them goes through these 2 extra steps is already just absurd. It's just ridiculous.
It's like I said, last week before, when I said, can we just not get to a point where everyone agrees that there should be some enforcement, so that this is not just straight pay for play, that this actually should be what true name, image, and likeness endorsements are. Why do we have to push back on everything that's just trying to enforce the purity, the ideal of what that's supposed to be? It doesn't make much sense, other than the Big Ten and the SEC and the Cody Campbells of the world just trying to flex their muscles and say, "We're bigger than you, and you got to deal with it." Just let the enforcement happen.
And here's where this next clause in the bill, and it'll be the last thing before we get to Gordy Chiesa, this next proposal put in the bill is where it gets most interesting, because part of it, the Protect College Sports Act, is looking to resolve some of the television deal disparity by allowing all FBS schools to band together and negotiate television contracts as an entire body, as long as it's 75% of the FBS schools agreeing to whatever that is. then everybody could benefit from shared media rights. So it's not just the SEC, it's not just the Big Ten. Everyone in FBS would be able to share their media rights. This is where we get a little pie in the sky. This is where this becomes more performative politics. I love that you put this in here, but there's absolutely no way on this green earth that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to say, "Oh, cool, we get to include the Big 12 teams in this, and they get an equal share of this new deal that we're going to do."
Colorado State gets a piece of our money? Absolutely.
That's where this becomes a little bit like, "Hey, we want everybody." Ted Cruz is up there going, "We want everybody to take a piece." And the Big Ten and the SEC are just like, but you didn't ask us about that part. Yeah, by all means, we'll get on board with like calming down these waters and even abiding by a real salary cap if we have to. But what are you talking about? We got to share even revenue distribution with BYU and Utah. I'm Michigan. I'm Ohio State. Why am I telling Kansas State in a handshake deal that I will also give you? I'll take $60 million this year instead of $75 so that you could also have $60 million. No way is that going to go through. I'll dive into some more of these clauses. There's some other things in there like a proposed cap on the percentage agents would be able to charge student athletes and their families. They would have to be like you have to be in NFL football, NBA basketball, Major League Baseball. You have to be a registered agent with that governing body in order to represent anybody that is participating. That's something that's in here. We'll get to that later on in the show. But right now we got to take a break because Gordy Chiesa has joined us in studio. We've got a lot to talk about in these NBA playoffs and beyond. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, brought to you by Big Willie's at 1717 South Main, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in our resident NBA guru and my good friend Gordy Chiesa, who's here with us in studio today. Gordy, how are you?
I am doing fine, thank you.
Gordy, you're rocking. Are you a closet Avs fan? You're rocking the Colorado shirt today.
Unfortunately, I am. They lost 4-0 on a sweep, so that is a concern. But I do like the Avalanche. I do actually like hockey in general, including also the obviously the Mammoth. The other day, I know a lot of crazy Canadians, Sean, and so the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup was 1993.
Yeah,
that's how crazy it is. Crazy.
It's
93.
It's a wild thing to think that the national sport of Canada, none of their professional franchises have been able to hoist the cup. Of course, a lot of Canadians populate the American franchises that have had success in those years. But, yeah, until we have to defend the gold medal, Canada's now hockey's now America's sport because we're the gold medalists right now.
Yes, we are.
Until the next Olympics.
And that was exciting. And also, just as exciting, Olympics in 2028 in L.A., which is going to be fantastic for every sport, to say the least, is possibly that gold medal game between USA versus France. So Victor Wembanyama and the fella, remember last time, there was a reference point, it took every ounce of Steph Curry's brilliance where he went unconsciously those three-point shots that held off the French rally. And that's how close it is right now with the French team and also with the USA. And obviously French team we're alluding to right now, talking about Victor Wembanyama, who's a generational talent.
Victor Wembanyama the other night took as close to a heel turn as we've seen since he threw the elbow, right? Skipped the media, allegedly may or may not have whispered a little, hey, go get that guy command to his teammates. Bismack Biyombo and Mason Plumlee both went out on the floor and threw some hard fouls after a brief conversation with Victor Wembanyama. And of course, I like to be conspiratorial. I enjoy I enjoy did Victor just order the hit? When you saw how that whole scenario played out, what were your thoughts?
Same thing also is that you need somebody on your team either at that moment to back you up by taking a hard message foul during the game, or maybe some of your teammates who come in the game that they're more physical and they also commit, again, smart fouls that are hard, but it's a basketball play, meaning what? You make a play on the ball, and that's an interpretation of it. You got to protect your star players. In yesteryear, in playoff basketball, it was incredible how there were so many fouls. So, for example, the Knickerbockers, they had a cast of characters, to say the least. Charles Oakley would commit hard, smart fouls. So would Anthony Mason. And for the Portland Trailblazers, it would be Buck Williams committing a lot of smart fouls. And in Jazz basketball, he did it for himself, was Karl Malone. Was that he used to tell me in playoff games, before they hit me and take my head off, I'm going to hit them first. And so Karl was his own enforcer. And that was absolutely critical. So, again, I'm not saying playing dirty. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying, within the context of the rules, you've got to be able to protect your star teammate, especially like Wembanyama. He's way beyond just a star player. He's a generational talent. He's a franchise difference maker. He makes everyone around him in the San Antonio's building, Sean, including those nuns that are lobbying for more tickets. Sean, do not mess with the nuns.
Don't mess with the nuns.
Do not.
I was not educated by nuns the way that Gordy was.
Absolutely, Sean. I have so many stories. You see these old movies back in 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's all true plus more. All true plus more with the nuns. Do not mess with them.
Yeah, I was not educated by private school nuns like Gordy, but I did work with nuns in my young adulthood when I was doing some volunteer stuff in Africa, and it's a special group of people. They don't mess around, though.
They don't mess around. So, Sean, one time I was at a giant football game. Sean, this is a scenario. I was sitting behind nuns, ready, at a giant football game. with my young children at that time. Ready? This is the game, Sean. It never happened forever, where the Minnesota in this game, Sean, there was a touchdown, a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown, a punt return touchdown, a kickoff return touchdown, a fumble return, an overtime touchdown. And these crazy Giant fans were screaming at the Vikings who are making these plays where the Giants are winning the game. Showing everything could happen, a touchdown happened, and behind me was these nuns. So every time the crazy Giant fans would start saying very bad words against the Giant, if you know what I mean, Sean, they'd bless themselves and say, "Sister, I'm sorry for my language." Sean, right behind me with my young 2 boys. I was explaining, they really mean what these, you know what I mean? Sean, look it up, Sean.
They're tough.
Viking Giant football game. Sean, justice. They all have again. Time. Vikings.
I was on a busy open street.
Oh,
okay.
Right. So true.
From Ruvo de Puglia in the open street, Italy. Yeah. We're walking town. Tough part of there's all these vendors. They have their wares out on the sidewalks and on the street, right? And it's a dicey given to people who are of the club, right? Towards well, at and not all their bootleg DVDs were exactly family-friendly entertainment, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And they've got all their stuff laid out on the sidewalk, and Gordon not. I'm not exaggerating at all. When this 5'4" tiny through their display, saw the kind of stuff and kicked. You shit! Terrible! This is game. Kicked it all over. We're just they're not doing. Not a more like please don't. And walk. Please make a little. They special, but in general.
San Antonio Spurs had these 4 nuns that were cheering for the Spurs, and they're wearing Spurs like jerseys and stuff and clothing with over the habit. And the Spurs, you can't make this up. So it's perfect television. I mean, this is something that every TV producer dreams about, where it's natural. It's not like staged. And so the nuns were cheering, etc. And the Spurs gave the nuns now 4 more tickets for the rectory, for the nunnery. And so now should be 8 nuns. I'm not sort of sitting together, but they're going to cheer for the Spurs. And it's made for television, no doubt about it. Now, besides the nuns, though, praying for the Spurs also, getting back to true basketball, is that they got to protect Victor Wembanyama, but Victor also has to do a better job of trying to get free. So, Sean, the defense of the Thunder is physical, led by Isaiah Hartenstein. So here's Hartenstein, who's, again, he has slowed down Victor Wembanyama, not outplayed him, just slowed him down. So in Game 1, Hartenstein plays 12 minutes. In Game 2, he plays 27. In Game 3, he plays 21. In Game 4, he plays 18. And now in Game 5, he plays 31 minutes. So in this series, he's averaging 8.2 points per game, but 9 rebounds in only 21.8 minutes. And he has that funky 10-foot push shot, very similar to Jakob Poeltl, former Utah player that plays for the Raptors. And Wembanyama is slow to react to it. So he's making this shot that's unorthodox, but it goes in. His last point about Victor Wembanyama versus Isaiah Hartenstein is that last game, in Game 5, which is a huge concern, Victor Wembanyama had his lowest point total in the paint all season, not the playoffs. All the other games regular season, he only scored 8 points in the paint. So how do you get free with Victor? If I was counseling him, I would do this, is that I'd be a screener. Instead of starting high, showing above the foul line area, I would start all the time low and get a running start. I'd back screen for some teammate to get to make the player guarding me, Hartenstein, have to make a pause. Do I switch out or do I stay in my body? And then the second part of that, or what we call this a double whammy screen, was when I screened for you to get myself free as a screener, but then James Peterson screens for the guy who's still on my body, whether they switched or not. So we call it a whammy screen to now make a clean catch above the foul line extended so I could be in operational mode versus trying to slug it out all the time because mano a mano, numbers on numbers, bodies on bodies, showing bone on bone, it's not working right now. So screen to get yourself free.
The disappearance post-game, not doing the media for Victor Wembanyama. Guys have been fined for this. He was given a warning. We saw this in the NHL playoffs, by the way, when the Vegas Golden Knights just shirked their media responsibilities. And, Victor Wembanyama is a guy that, for better or worse, the media wants to talk to you every single game of your career. What do you make of him not being available?
Young person, age 22. He's absolutely frustrated. He didn't play well. He had a temporary amnesia. And the NBA, I'm sure, they gave him a warning. It might have been a fine behind closed doors. It's a chump change, to say the least. And he'll be ready for it next time. So you can't do that. I remember a long, long time ago, is that very similar to Karl Malone, is that sometimes he didn't want to talk to the media. One time he did in a national television game on NBC Sports. The NBA fined him. The Jazz paid the fine, as a matter of fact, which, again, it's a small change, to say the least. Karl learned from that. The rest is history. But Sean, it's no different than Greg Popovich when he had the sideline stuff on the sideline during the game. When the reporter asked a quick question, he gave a one-word comment.
Yeah.
Sean, one word.
Never was a fan of that from Popovich, from Bill Belichick. For players, it's a little bit more understandable, right? For coaches, your whole job is that, right? Your whole job is being the face, being the mouthpiece, being the voice in a lot of ways. Players, I get it. Not all of them are exactly well-spoken. Not all of them are eloquent. Not all of them are quick on their feet with the speech. So it could be intimidating. It could be discouraging. It could be just annoying. Coaches, though, your job is to talk. You're a teacher. You got to you have to earn your part of the contract or that piece of your contract by at least giving some few words to the media.
Also, by the way, economics of it. The TV partners want to hear what's going inside. I'm not saying give you most close secrets about strategy. I'm not saying that. But if you pay billions of dollars, you have the right to ask the coaches to give an answer to a question. And by the way, it's only about the most ever. It's about a minute and 20 seconds. That's like the most. And it's all part of a digital world we live in. This is all part of it. This is it. There's no turning back. So you got to be able to do it. And if you're going to do it, guess what? Do it well. Do it well. If you're going to do it, think about what you're going to say for that minute and 20 seconds and articulate it to showcase, one, your own ability as a coach to be able to talk under fire, Sean. See, so much is how you communicate in the huddle with your team, with the referees during the game, now with the media, with the audience that's watching it and the TV partners. And by the way, under pressure skills, which separates so many coaches and leaders as far as how do you react when things aren't going well, Sean, during the course of a game? That's the question, as always. Some fail, some miserably regroup themselves and go forward quickly.
We got a lot to talk about with Gordy Chiesa. More basketball action to come in the Western Conference Final. The Eastern Conference Final has already been solved with the New York Knicks advancing. We've got Gordy for another 40 minutes or so. The Festival of Tees is still on here at ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, powered by the Utah Golf Association and brought to you by Mountain Home Services. We are giving away free rounds of golf to the best courses in the state and beyond right here on the Sean O'Connell Show and on The Drive with Spence Checketts. So make sure you're listening all day for your chance to win. We'll give away our round of golf toward the end of the show, about 2 hours from now. Gordy Chiesa stays with us. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. We still have got Gordy Chiesa in with us for another 30-plus minutes. Lots to get to. We've got some actual playoff basketball still, but the offseason storylines are ramping up. Free agency right now. Who's the first domino to fall, you think, in this? It's not a superstar-studded free agency, but there are some very relevant, important players that are out on the market, so to speak. Who's going to be the first domino to fall?
Austin Reeves. Yeah, Lakers, because it involves LeBron as far as that situation. Austin Reeves is a tremendous player. This year, he may next season, the 26-27 season, he makes $14.9 million. So he's dramatically overpaid in the context of the NBA. So now he'll opt out of his contract, become unrestricted, and now what is he worth towards the Lakers? Knowing that Luka Doncic is a star player, LeBron James, God bless him, age 42 on December 30th. So they've got to pay Austin Reeves, who averages roughly 25 points a game. You know the stats already, 39 from threes. He's got hops to his game. He plays hard defensively. You get to see he has a spirit about himself. He'll probably get 5 years, Sean, at $200 million total. So that's the first domino. The next domino could be vastly underrated. He plays for the T-Wolves. Again, the T-Wolves had back-to-back years in the conference finals. This year they fell short. They're aging, but they have a star player in Anthony Edwards. They made that wonderful trade to get Ayo Dosunmu. He's an unrestricted free agent. So you've got to pay him. Because remember, last year they let Nickeil Walker-Alexander go to the Atlanta Hawks. They didn't pay him. He became the most improved player in the NBA. So he's going to get played. Jazz basketball, Walker Kessler. All right, what do you do in Jazz basketball? That's a huge question. And it's going to piggyback as far as who the Jazz draft also, somewhat, if they do take Cam Boozer at 2, just hypothetically, just for the narrative. Because now you have Larry Marketing. Remember now, the Jazz salary right now is that Jaren Jackson makes $40.1 million, and the second right now is Ace Bailey. Bailey. That's it. So
on a rookie contract?
You got that right, Sean. So Walker Kessler is part of this equation right now. Hey, he's homegrown. He only played last year 5 games. This is his 4th year. He's a good player. He wants to be in Utah. He's got he has somewhat leverage. Somewhat.
Sure.
But now with Jaren Jackson being there, that leverage has slightly degressed. Slightly now. I'm using my words carefully here. Slightly. So, again, Jakob Poeltl, former Utah player, Utes, makes $28.5 million on average. I think that Walker Kessler is a better player. I think, and also he's homegrown by the Jazz. Meaning what? They drafted him, Sean.
So would you spend more or less than $30 million a year on average value for a Walker Kessler? Because that's comparable to that Jakob Poeltl number that you just mentioned. It's a little bit better, right? And you mentioned he does have a certain amount of leverage. And I actually believe that his leverage is pretty healthy because everyone's been waiting and holding their breath for this team to be ready. And it feels like with him in the lineup, this team is a lot more ready than if you're trying to then say, oh, crap, now we still have to get a true center big man. Yes, you have size with Jaren Jackson Jr. and with Lauri Markkanen, but it feels like Walker Kessler is, at least in the average fan's viewpoint, he's a big piece of what they're going to be putting out on the floor next year. So they're not going to let him go.
Agreed. So what's he worth roughly in this marketplace? And again, the Jazz, he's restricted. So the Jazz will wait if someone bids on him, and then you have 48 hours to match. And that'll be in July. So it's after the draft. Okay? So that he's probably worth per year 31 to 33 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Times 4 years or 5. I would go 4 and then reassess because he's a young guy. He's only 24 years old. And that he's a good player. He's gotten better each year. He's homegrown. The Jazz drafted him and they developed him. And he's ready to have a bust-out year. He played well for the first 5 games last year. Then he went down with the torn labrum, and so he's a factor. Now there's so many less teams that can afford him. Like one team has the most money, Sean, but you don't want to go there. I like to visit there, Sean, because it's my home state, but I don't want to play. Excuse me. Is the Brooklyn Nets, formerly New Jersey.
Yeah.
All right, so they have the most money in the offseason right now. So we'll see how it plays out. Denver Nuggets, Jazz Division. Good team, fell short. We all love Nikolai Jokic. All right, Peyton Watson got hurt. End of the season, it set them back, the Nuggets right now. All right, so he's restricted. They're going to wait till someone bid on him, but they've got to re-sign him. Their problem right now with the Denver Nuggets is that it didn't work out with Cam Johnson on his contract. 1 year left. He makes next year $23 million. And then Christian Brown. Sean, don't you love America, Sean? Don't you love America? It's a land of opportunity. Christian Brown, he signed that contract, 5 years, $125 million. Yikes. You like him, but not at those numbers. You see, so again, it's so important that you get the majority of contracts correctly. There's a few more guys we talk about, and this will be ongoing in the next few weeks. All right, LeBron James. Okay, you love him. He played well for the Lakers, but you can't pay him. You can't. You cannot pay him for what he thinks he's worth. Where he's worth anything I get, he's worth every penny possibly, but not for the Lakers right now. So mid-level exceptions, $15 million next year. He's not going to accept that, but who's going to pay him? That's the question. And who might? Maybe, Sean, maybe the Warriors one last hurrah with a pay cut, though, with a dramatic pay cut.
Well, my pie-in-the-sky dream for LeBron James is that in order to further cement his legacy, in order to, I think for most people, the book is written that it's going to be Michael Jordan number 1, LeBron James number 2, maybe. Maybe it's a 1A, 1B situation. Obviously, there are folks more from your generation of basketball who will tell you that Wilt Chamberlain doesn't get mentioned the way he should in those conversations. But
Sean, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, I mean, it's always apples to oranges, and those. While I enjoy those debates for summertime radio, it's not really pertinent. But for LeBron James, my pie-in-the-sky dream is, because he is truly great, right? And I think that he's the type of guy that still has a lot to give to the game, not only with his stats, but if you set LeBron down and he's accepted a role in your locker room that, hey, LeBron, we need you to teach these young guys your habits, your body recovery, your film study. We want you to teach some of these young guys your habits. You're a player coach of sorts. You're the Robert Parrish on this particular team. If he'd be willing to accept something like that, and he'd be willing to go to a place that has never won a championship but has a really good roster, right? There's 6-7 teams in the league that haven't won the championships. There's 3 or 4 of them that have a pretty healthy roster. The Utah Jazz is one of them. I don't think he's coming to Salt Lake City. But I would love to see LeBron James say, I got like 1 or 2 years left here. I'm going to go play for the Minnesota Timberwolves at a discount and see if I can get that team over the hump. That would, I think, add a significant boost to his legacy if he helped be the catalyst for a team that had never won a championship before.
Well, add to that. But this team also is that he goes there. He has to enjoy playing with his teammates, though. So
sure.
Most times it would be someone that he's familiar with. So it's going to be interesting. It's fascinating how it all plays out. And it won't play out the first week of free agency, which is July 1st. It's going to play out after that. So he's another player that he plays right now in the NBA Finals, Mitchell Robinson, off the bench.
I was about to ask you about Mitchell Robinson and Landry Shamet. Both of those guys have decisions to make.
Absolutely. Very much. So Mitchell Robinson on most teams would start, on most teams. But on Knickerbockers, the way they're structured, Carl-Anthony Towns, who's played very well the last year or so, he's matured as far as his thinking. And so Mitchell Robinson's the backup. But when he gets in the game, he outplays almost all the backup centers, and he outplays usually half of the starting centers. He's a live wire offensive rebounder. What's he worth right now? Minimum, Sean, at least $15 million a year, mid-level exception. That's minimum. 4 years, $15 million, $60 million plus change. So he'll be out there. All right, Landon Shamet. Got to love this guy. This guy, Shamet, he replaced basically former Jazz man Jordan Clarkson, who signed with the Knickerbockers, and it hasn't worked out as far as his career. The team is winning, but they're winning without Jordan Clarkson because of Landon Shamet. All right, so Shamet right now is a free agent off the bench. He's played absolutely great. Here's some quick numbers about Shamet this postseason run. He's shooting 55.3% from the field, Sean, from three-point range, from threes, 60% from threes in 14 games, 60%. And as a matter of fact, in the present tense, the last 2 games when the Knicks punched the Cavs in the face, Shamet, as we speak right now, Sean, has made 9 out of his last 10 three-point shots. 9 of the last 10. That, Sean, I'm not a math scholar, but that's 90%.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
And plus also, he plays good defense, and he's like again, it sounds so trivial. I live in the real world. Yes, I do. But he's a good guy. Good guy meaning what? His teammates like him. He comes on time to the walkthroughs. Sean, on the plane, he's respectful to his teammates on the plane above sea level, 35,000 feet. These are all things that make why teams do win. So he'll be out there. He's worth probably now $8 to $10 million a year. I'm pausing because I don't want to get so crazy as far as someone's value, but he'll get something from not the Knickerbockers, some other team right now.
So for those two in particular, how much will what happens in the NBA Finals affect their decision? Because you could stay with New York on a discount, or you could maximize your individual value in the market like we've seen guys do so often. But the chances of you ending up on another contender, I mean, maybe you win a championship this year, and the conversation in the next few days after you win that championship is like, hey, let's go get it again next year. Let's keep this band together, and let's see if we can chase it again next year. Realistically, these guys might be looking at it and saying, I'm going to go get the most money I can to play for Charlotte, right? I'm going to do the Harrison Barnes thing. How much does the result of the finals affect the decision-making for Landry Shamet and for Robinson?
It's a factor, but the biggest factor is your age group. In other words, just generally speaking, if you're say Landon Shamet type or Mitchell Robinson, if you're 30 years old and younger, you take the money. If you're above 30, then the money is important, but winning is also. Yeah. So it's like a rule of thumb. And you could say give or take a year or so off that. With 31, 29, you could debate that. But it's absolutely important because, Sean, if you take a discount, your team doesn't win, you're forever bitter about, I could have got more money some other place. So it's that unbelievable what age group, how old you are as far as that. And also, if you really feel in your heart of hearts that you have a chance to really play well again the second or third year under contract. So it's interesting. It's a good dilemma to have, though.
All right, we got to take a break here. Gordy is still with us for another 20 minutes or so. We'll talk about Game 6 coming, Spurs Thunder, which, by the way, you can listen to right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Lots left with Gordy on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's #1 sports talk. Gordy Cheese is here in studio with us on the Sean O'Connell Show. Conversations with Gordy brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. If you're looking to put a skylight in your home, Aladdin Industries is the only spot for you to get those V-Lux skylights. So, Western Conference Final, Game 6 at 6, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Watch it on your TV. Mute the TV. Listen to the radio broadcast right here with Utah's #1 sports talk. Spurs hosting the Thunder. It is a potential elimination game, obviously, Gordy, with the Thunder up 3-2. How do the Spurs stay alive?
One, being desperate. Don't shoot desperate, but play desperate. In a playoff closeout Game 6, it's like really it's an unbelievable fierceness battle, and that both teams are trying to compete, one to stay alive and the other one to move on. So that's the backdrop of it. And how do you do that? The best way to stay alive in it is to absolutely be maniacal about playing defense, and you've got to get, when you don't shoot straight in a playoff game because the defense is so edgy, you've got to offensive rebound. So tonight's game, the team that usually will win this game will be who gets more total rebounds, but especially get do-overs on the offensive glass. And that's why it's so critical that you give yourself up, your body, to try to get rebounds both on the defensive end and also climbing someone's back to try to get an offensive stick back on it. And that in playoff games like this, Sean, we call it the bigness of the moment, where that this is about big shots, big defensive stops. These are big games, and most of all, Sean, the people who have the most bigness are the ones with the big hearts. And that it's not about strategy anymore. You're playing the same team 6 times right now. You're guarding the same guy 6 times. It's about who has enough tenacity, yet be measured as far as their movement to be able to get it done. All right, rebounding, defensively, and then the star players have to step up. And it could be a shot, it could be a timely, a kick-out pass, it could be a steal. So the question right now is, can Victor Wembanyama and Stephen Castle will his team to get to Game 7? And can Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, can he also get his team to knock him out to get a few days rest right now? And Chet Holmgren's got to play much better just philosophically. You're getting huge performance right now by Isaiah Hartenstein. Casey Wallace has played very well for them. And then the X factor, as always, is this guy named Alex Caruso. All right, when you talk about the NBA draft 3 weeks from now, oh, by the way, Caruso was never invited to the party. So Alex Caruso is probably the best role player in the NBA that outperforms everything. Quickly with Caruso, I call him he's the MIP, the most important person on the Thunder. Not the most valuable player, but the most important person. Caruso's averaging 17 points per game, shooting 56.8 from the field and 58.1 from threes, 18 for 31. So he guards anybody on the court, and he makes threes, and he's always doing something to help his team. So who can make hustle plays to advance or to knock out the opponent? It's going to be a great game. My instincts tell me, Sean, it's going to be the Spurs, and we get a Game 7 on Saturday night.
The NBA obviously wants that, right? A primetime Saturday night, Game 7, 2 great Western Conference teams, and for all the marbles at least going to the NBA Finals.
Very much, they do. And Game 7 is nothing like it. We saw it already in the first round, and how Game 7 really makes a person's legacy. And speaking of Game 7, Sean, the greatest ever Game 7 winner of all time, it's not even close, is Bill Russell. He is 10-0 in Game 7s, where he averaged 15.1 points per game. Sean, he averaged rebounds in Game 7s, 29.3 rebounds in Game 7s. Remember, they didn't keep block shots then.
Yeah.
So we never know how many block shots he would have in Game 7. All right, Knickerbockers, they're resting right now, and they deserve it. All right? The last time Knicks were in the finals was 1999. And Sean, before, that's why we played the song in the studio about you and I, our beloved Prince, 1999. That was the last time they were in the finals, the Knickerbockers, in 27 years. And also the last time Knicks won a championship was 53 years ago in 1973, where ironically, Sean, is that they beat the Spurs 4-1. And and that just excuse me, pardon me. They lost to the Spurs in '99, 4-1. In 1973, when they beat the Lakers for the last championship, that was 53 years ago, when Willis Reed was the MVP. All right, quickly, let's add to this right now. You know about, Sean, so much of metrics in the draft and stuff. So here's some of the smallest players ever to play in the finals to win MVP. All right? So Isaiah Thomas in 1990 was 6'1", was the MVP. Tony Parker of the Spurs, 6'2", 2007. And then there's Steph Curry. He was MVP in 2022. So my question is, if the Knicks suddenly win it, Sean, 6'2", Jalen Brunson. You can't measure heart, Sean, whether it's the NFL or the NBA or the metrics or the length of somebody. Like Caruso right now, the metrics wouldn't tell him how the eye test wouldn't be so good. But in the way he plays Caruso, he plays bigger.
This is going back far with both franchises, but there's a revisionist history thing here. There was a time when the Oklahoma City franchise had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook all on the same roster. Brunson and Luka were on the same Mavericks roster together. Neither of those teams won championships with those guys, those perennial all-stars, those greats on the roster together. Which is more easily explainable for you? When you look back at what those teams were when they had those players on the roster, which one actually makes sense? Like, oh, yeah, they didn't win because of this.
Well, because they didn't share the ball.
Okay.
That's the reason why. In other words, it's what you want to do is when you have elite players in your team, one guy's going to be the alpha dog, where he has a dominant game and a dominant personality. But the other guys have dominant games, but not a dominant personality. And that's how you win championships. So I just described right now with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's got a dominant game without a dominant personality. He doesn't. And so that's why in that world, it's beautiful. There's joy to play and fun at OKC. It seems to me with the Spurs, Sean, with Wembanyama, people like being with him. It sounds so trivial. And in Knickerbockers, Jalen Brunson took a pay cut to help his future teammates make money to come on their team. And now that's the ultimate sacrifice as far as professional athlete. It's worked out great. Also, Karl-Anthony Towns, Cat, to his credit, he's taken a step back or sideways. He knows right now this is Jalen Brunson's team. But Jalen Brunson includes his teammates in everything that they do as far as on the court, off the court. That's why they win. It sounds so simple. Chemistry is absolutely important with star players.
Did the NBA get it right with the Coach of the Year award? Joe Mazzulla got the award.
Yes, they did. And also, segue to that, also the Executive of the Year was Brad Stevens. So the Celtics got back-to-back guys as far as the same year. Man, people thought the Celtics were going to be, a gap year, where Jason Tatum, who got hurt in the playoffs back in 2025, your year's right, he didn't play until April. And guess what happened? That the Celtics didn't agree, and they had no gap year. The Celtics right now, they won 56 games in 26 regular season. So 56 and 26, and they lost in the playoffs. But absolutely, they did a good job. Remember, they lost to the 76ers in Game 7 at home. So Joe Mazzulla, tremendous coach, good leader. The players respect him, and it sounds so simple, but it's not. So the question is always, any business, you have to, as a leader, you've got to show the qualities is that you're in charge. But within that, though, you delegate authority, Sean, to other people. That's why, like in the NFL, Sean, Andy Reid is the perfect NFL coach because he's a smart technician and strategist. But you get the feeling, Sean, that the coaches are a huge part of it, and that he includes the star players in any decision making. That's why the Chiefs, I know they have Mahomes, and that's part of it, but that's why they win or are highly competitive.
Gordy, what's your list today?
Okay. My list today, Sean, the NBA playoffs, Korea, total block shot leaders. So the most Korea block shots in the NBA. Yeah, Victor Wembanyama is not on this list, but my instincts tell me that he will be someday, minus some, God forbid, major injury. Here we go. To be a shot blocker quickly, there's some attributes and skills. 1 is timing. 2, length. 3, quick off your feet. 4, technique. Staying vertical, not horizontal. Big difference, vertical versus horizontal. And 5, discipline. The best shot blockers are the second jumper, not the first. So in any sort of head and shoulder fake in the lane, they stay up to stay down. And that's why it's so critical that you can block a shot and foul the guy. Guess what? It's a foul, not a block shot. Here we go. The 10 all-time Korea shot block leaders in playoff history. Number 10, Kevin McHale, 281 blocks. Number 9, LeBron James, 287. Number 8, Serge Ibaka, 292. Number 7, Patrick Ewing, 303 block shots. Number 6, Robert Parrish, 309. Number 5, David Robinson, 312. But David Robinson, also another intrigue, he's left-handed. So he blocks shots with a different hand, which is absolutely important. Number 4, Shaquille O'Neal, 459 blocks. Number 3, Akeem Olajuwon, 472 rejections. Number 2, all-time shot block leader, playoff history, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 476. The number 1 greatest ever shot blocking in NBA history is Tim Duncan. 568 blocks, which comes to 2.3. Quickly, what about Jazz basketball? Mark Eaton is 23rd all-time in block shots, where he blocked 210 blocks in his career for 2.8 blocks per game. So Mark only played in 74 games. All right, present tense, more importantly, Victor Wembanyama. All right, age 22. First time in the playoffs with the Spurs. He's played 15 games so far in this playoffs, in the 26 playoffs. He has 56 blocks already, which comes to 3.7 blocks per game. So Wembanyama, if Mark Eaton got 2.8, and that is great, and Tim Duncan averaged 2.3 blocks for his career, Wembanyama's got right now 3.7 blocks average in 15 games right now. Thus, Sean, shot blocking is absolutely critical in playoff games, because the reason why the three-point shot isn't as apparent, because the defense is so fierce. They run the shooters off the line in that mid-range game, and they try to draw fouls, and that's why shot blocking, rim protection is absolutely critical. Jazz basketball, Walker Kessler is a good shot blocker. So is Jaren Jackson, one of the best in the NBA. So as the Jazz go forward in playoff basketball, hope it's soon, is that they're going to have 2 shot blockers that will impact the game. Thus, Sean, that's my list of today.
So Tim Duncan played 251 career playoff games and ended up with 568 total blocks. What did you say Wemby's blocks per game? He's at 3.7 or something right now?
3.7 blocks per game.
Okay.
So
I'm going to do a little...
56 total blocks in 15 games.
3.7 times 251. If he was able to maintain that pace for as many playoff games as Tim Duncan played, remember, Tim Duncan's total 568. If Wemby was able to do 3.7 blocks per game over the course of 251 games, that's 928 career playoff blocks. It's an absurd number.
Absolutely.
And obviously, the more playoff games he plays, probably that average comes down a little bit. But even if he gets 200 games at 3 blocks a game, we're talking about the record by a healthy margin. He's still 32 blocks above a Tim Duncan with 51 fewer games played. He is a force defensively.
Yes,
and not so bad offensively.
That's exactly right. And also the San Antonio Spurs. So if that happens, Sean, the Spurs would have 3 guys in the top 5 all time. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and maybe someday Victor Wembanyama. So talk about, oh, by the way, if you're in a small market, you can't win the championship. Says who?
I had, by the way,
Says who?
when you started that list, I had totally put Tim Duncan out of my mind. I was like, oh, it's going to be Kareem number 1, Hakeem Olajuwon number 2. I had totally forgotten that Tim Duncan should be in the spot that he's in.
But not really a great leaper. So Sean, getting back to the attributes, where he's a second jumper in the lane,
Yeah.
in that position wise, and that he stays vertical versus he stays on the ground more. That's why it's absolutely critical how he blocks shots. And that's why it's so important is to stay vertical versus horizontal, where you body the guy on his shoulders. Little things do matter. Attention to detail is absolutely important to any athlete, any sport. The details do matter.
Shout out Serge Ibaka, by the way, for making that list without being an overall great player.
He's the only one. Also, add to that, Sean, he was the guy they gave the money to, the Thunder, instead of James Harden.
Yeah, that's
Remember
right.
that a long time ago? It was they paid Ibaka and moved on James Harden. Absolutely spectacular. Both teams are going to pour it out on the court, and that we have the power, Sean, of the nuns for the San Antonio Spurs of trying to help their favorite team right now.
That is Gordy Chiesa. We thank him for his contributions to the show, as always. Brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer. A little potpourri of stories. We'll stay with basketball. Wednesday was when players had to either officially declare they're going to go to the NBA draft or they're going to stay in college. And there's at least one Big 12 talent that has decided not only is the playing time better, but the money might be better for him in college basketball also. We'll get to that next in the Daily Dump. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. If you're a Big 12 basketball fan, you probably already know the name Milan Momcilovic. Chilovic, I think, is the actual correct way to say it. Iowa State star that was, until yesterday evening, deeply involved in the pre-draft process for this upcoming NBA draft. And instead of staying in the draft, Milan has decided he's going to come back and play some college hoop. Now, you might be thinking, what? What are you doing? If you're an NBA draft pick, you got to go to the NBA. Why would you leave the NBA? Well, it's not like he's going from a guaranteed hefty salary to nothing, because the projections right now is he's basically one of the top guys available in college free agency. And the expectation is that he will fetch perhaps a little bit north of $5 million on the NIL market. Now, I guess he might have to worry about whether or not the College Sports Commission, the CSC, is going to approve his salary at the new schools. St. John's apparently is in on him. Kentucky's in on him. Arizona, who is maybe hoping for Koa Pete to come back. Koa Pete has decided he's staying in the draft. He's been having discussions with Arizona. If you're Iowa State, you might be like, oh, my goodness, our best player's coming back. But they all know he's not going to stay at Iowa State.
Because he's in the portal.
Tough.
Yeah.
Tough for the Cyclone fans.
Maybe the best pure shooter in college basketball last year, and he was, he's 6'8", like size, and can shoot it really well. Yeah, Koa Pete's leaving Arizona, and maybe Momcilovic ends up in Tucson. I don't know.
Seems like that. Some people are reporting that Arizona is the favorite to land Milan Momcilovic, and
not a bad replacement for your freshman phenom who's going to the NBA.
Who, weirdly enough, apparently at the NBA scouting combine and during those workouts, there's been a lot of conversation about how, like, Koa Pete hasn't looked as good as people expected him to look, that his jump shot's looking kind of wonky. There was all this stuff about the release point on his jump shot being off, even compared to what you saw from him in the Arizona games this year. And look, I am not the guy that's grinding tape on the release point of college basketball players' jump shots, and especially then comparing them to what they're seeing in the NBA pre-draft workouts. But
do we have a Markelle Fultz yips situation with the jumper?
Who knows?
That would be a bad thing.
I mean, look, this happens in the NFL scouting combine all the time, right? Where you see a guy who has just an incredible college football career as a quarterback, and then you go to the NFL scouting process, and they're just like, yeah, but look how he throws the ball. And you're like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean, look how he throws the ball? Look at his throwing motion. His throwing motion's weird. It sucks. It's kind of sidearm. His release point's too low. And the tendency I have is just like, well, he played at Ohio State, and it didn't really hurt him there. Is it going to hurt that bad in the NFL? And you get these, like, hyper analysts maybe overanalyzing of throwing motions, and in this case, maybe a jump shot. What matters is it going in, and that is where it can get ugly at the NBA level and obviously at the NFL level. If that throwing motion affects the timing on your throws, the accuracy of your throws, your draft position dies. If people start to be like, what's going on with his jump shot, and he's missing those shots, your draft position dies.
Yeah, there's a couple of things on unorthodox release points with jumpers. One is, of course, is the shot going in or not? That should be the ultimate barometer. The other thing, though, is it making your shot too slow? Because you remember Joe Ingles, for example. He transformed his career with the Utah Jazz. People have conveniently forgotten about this. Joe Ingles' first couple of years, in my opinion, he was absolutely terrible on the offensive end, other than being a pretty good secondary ball handler, creator. He didn't give you much on the offensive end. He was really good on defense, And the biggest adjustment he made that made him one of the best role players in the Jazz franchise history, one of the biggest fan favorites from an on-the-court perspective, was he went from a very slow release point to a super quick release, and it made him one of the best three-point shooters in the league for a long time. So if Koa Pete's jumper is slowing down his release a bunch, it doesn't matter that much whether the shot's going in, because he's not going to be able to get the shot off if it's too slow. So that's a couple of things to look for. But the ultimate thing is the shot going in. The player that I think of, incredible three-point shooter in his time, Sean Marion. No one should copy that release point. He does like a. You remember weird. Sean Marion's release point? It was like a like flipping it with his thumbs, like he was almost granny shot from his chest, and yet he was a career 38% three-point shooter. So you wouldn't go to Sean Marion and go, you know what, you got to change your release. No, it's going in, and he didn't have any problem with it being too slow or anything like that I was talking about. So if Koa Pete, if this weird change to his release point is effective and it's not slowing down his shot, then maybe you shouldn't be too worried about it.
Milan Momcilovic, by the way, here's his stat line: 6'8", 225, 16.9 points per game, 3.1 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game. Shot 50% from the field and 48.7% from three. That's why some college basketball blue blood is going to pay him $5 million to be on their roster next year.
And again, I did not know the rumors linking him to Arizona, but that does not surprise me one bit. I could picture him as an Arizona Wildcat playing that stretch four position, and they're not going to miss Koa Pete one bit if that's the case.
I'm trying to think, because he made a decision here on the conversations that were being had around his pro prospects. And I would have thought 48.7% from three is enough to get you onto an NBA roster.
With the size that he has, absolutely.
I mean, I know that there's a lot more to it than that, but the NBA rookie pay scale for this upcoming draft, I'm just pulling this up by Spot Track right now. Why is my computer being so slow? Or is our Wi-Fi struggling again here?
Could be. Give it a minute.
As I filibuster to try to fill the time, you're making a calculated decision on whether or not it's better for you to go to the NBA, start that clock, right? Sign a big deal, hoping that the next one is even bigger. Or do you go back to college sports? He's 21 years old, right? He's old enough. There's plenty of guys in the NBA that are younger than him.
I got it to load for me.
Okay, so it's basically the calculus he's making is that, like, all right, I'm going to be making the same kind of money as the 15th overall pick in this year. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, so the minimum if you're a first-round pick is about $3 million.
Right.
Which is, I mean, that's a lot of money to pass up, but you talk about what he could be getting out of the transfer portal, $4 to $5 million. That's better than the bottom of the first round. And he may not have been a first round. He may not have gotten a first round grade. Maybe he got a second round grade. Those are non-guaranteed contracts. We don't have that rookie scale on Spot Track, but it's less than $3 million too.
If you're looking at in the pro scouts and your agents, everyone tries to be pretty transparent and honest with your draft projection. In the NBA, it seems it's a lot more accurate than the NFL is always all over the place, right? You hear guys that are just like, yeah, I got back a first round grade. Cool. Everyone that's beyond the second round, it's like I've heard anything from the third round to the sixth round. You're like, do you realize the disparity, the insane difference between being a third and a sixth round pick in the NFL? Like, it's great to be a sixth round pick, but to be a third round pick, That's life-changing stuff. That's life-changing money. You're pretty much guaranteed a spot on the roster for the first couple of years because they've invested a third-round pick in you. The sixth round, that's wild that the range is so huge there. In the NBA, they get a lot more specific. They'll be like, yeah, you got a first-round grade. Also, you're a lottery pick. College basketball now, if any of these projections are to be believed, and they don't just come out of nowhere, right? The agents have a good sense. The players have a good sense. This is a guy who would be projected potentially just outside of the lottery. You're making the same money. If you get down to pick number 20, you're probably making more money in college. And this is very specific to basketball, by the way. If you're pick number 25 in the first round, you're making $3.3 million in the NBA your first year. But in college hoops, if you're making 4 to 5, that's a big difference for a 21-year-old.
I got to think that Chilovich got like a kind of hazy, maybe you're a first-round pick kind of evaluation from scouts that he talked to and his people talked to. And then they looked at the rookie pay scale that we just brought up and went, well, if you're not guaranteed to be a first round, if scouts are kind of the jury's out on that, and the most you'd make is just over $3 million, let's just go back to college for one more year, kill it again, and make $4 to $5 million, and then hopefully you're guaranteed to be a first round pick if you have a great year in college again.
We are going to have Jeremy Wu, ESPN NBA draft analyst, is going to join us at 1. He might have some insight on the feedback that Momcilovic got from the NBA draft process that helped to inspire his decision to go back to college, where we will now hold our breath and wait to see where he ends up.
Did you see the ludicrous statement that Greg Sankey said at SEC meetings?
That the SEC is still the number 1 league in the country?
He didn't just say they're still the number 1 league in the country. He said they are by far, and then he proceeded to back that up by saying we lost close games in the college football playoff. Well, hold on. Being by far does not – you don't back that up by saying we were competitive in losses.
If I'm not mistaken, the SEC was 2-8 in bowl games this year.
By far the best.
Here's the thing. I don't think that should be the metric that is always used to determine whether or not a conference is good, right? I think that is incredibly reductive. There's matchup situations. There's all opt-outs, especially now.
Are your best players playing?
Best players playing? So I don't think that should be the metric that we determine who the best teams, the best conference in the country is. But I do remember very distinctly how aggressively postseason results, bowl game results were used against the Pac-12 conference to undermine the Pac-12 conference.
Yes.
When they were like, "Oh, you were 3-6 in bowl games this year. You were 2-6 in bowl games this year. You were 500 in bowl games this year." There are a lot of people who are just like, "See, you're not playing good football out there." So if you're going to use it against the Pac-12, rest in peace, you got to use it against the SEC too, because Sankey was one of the guys pushing that narrative.
Yeah, 2-8. Bowl record, like you said, not the greatest metric there, but still pretty bad. He referenced these 3 specific games as to say we were competitive and the ball just bounced the wrong way for us. It's an odd ball. That shouldn't say that we're definitely behind the Big Ten, for example. He said 2023 Rose Bowl when Michigan beat Alabama on their way to the national championship a couple years ago. Obviously, 1-score game in overtime. Okay, Alabama played well and lost. The year later, when Ohio State beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl, that was the Jack Sawyer incredible strip sack to a touchdown that made it a 2-score game late in the fourth quarter. That was basically a 1-score game. Then the incredible play makes it a 2-score game. Then last year, Miami over Ole Miss, he's like, that game didn't end on a Hail Mary. That was a legitimate throw into the end zone from 40 yards away. That, like, Ole Miss could have won that game, and it wasn't a desperation thing. Okay, fine. It's very much like Cavs coach Kenny Atkinson saying, "You know what? Expected results were
analytically we won 2 out of 3."
It's like, okay, analytically we were really competitive in losses, so that means we're by far the best football conference. If he hadn't have said by far and then still used the same argument to say, you know what, we're still right there, this would have set much better for me. But to say by far and then back it up with, hey, look at these losses we had. No, when you lose, you're not by far the best.
I want to know. I want truth serum in these people, right? Because there's propaganda, which is pretty normal on a business level, and SEC football is big business, right? There's certain like company lines that you're almost coached on when you're an executive in a company, or when you're an employee of a company, and they're just like, hey man, what's the deal with like this new formula of Coca-Cola? Oh yeah, we're excited. They have to say things a certain way.
You think it tastes better than Coke's ever tasted.
There's there's a way that you have to answer questions. Who's actually the master of this? Dana White. If you watch any of the stuff that's going on with the UFC, the White House card coming up, the pay scale that is always criticized in the UFC, right? He is always like, well, are you paying fighters enough? Instead of saying like, here's what the numbers are, here's why the numbers. Hey, you know what? Pay has gone up in the UFC from the very beginning. It's always gone up, and it's going to continue to go up. And it's like, that's not even an answer to the question. And I know you don't believe what you're saying when you say that pay is good. I know you're lying. I want to know, though, if Sankey is actually lying because it's the company line and it's propaganda that he has to perpetrate to keep the university presidents, athletic directors, fans happy, or does he actually believe this? I need to know when these coaches go out and say, like, yeah, anyone else in this league would be 500. It's like, oh, really? Do you really believe that the Ohio State Buckeyes would be 500 in the SEC?
Anyone else, OC?
Is that really what you believe? Well, there's cupcake schedule that they play. And then someone is always like, what about your November schedule? Well, we're getting rid of that now. I know, but you've played it that way for 100 years. And it's propped you up to this level. Like, do you actually believe these things you're saying? That is a much more fascinating prospect here. Sankey has to say that this is the best conference in the country. Like, Brett Yormark is going to be asked, hey, where are you compared to the Big Ten and the SEC? He's going to be asked that question at Big 12 Media Days. And you know what he's going to say? We're right there.
He's going to say we like our positions.
We're all like so close.
He's not going to say we're the best, because even he's not going to lie that blatantly, but he's going to say we love our position, which is kind of a lie.
We think we're going to put some teams up there that can compete with those big boys. We've got access to the college football playoff. We can win a national championship. When it's like, in your heart of hearts, I know, he knows, your best team last year went to the college football playoff and stunk it up.
He probably, if you gave him truth serum, he'd be like, we don't have a chance at a national championship. I'd love to be surprised, but I don't feel that way.
You know what would be great? If he was like, well, let's see. Everyone at the SEC meetings was talking about how $40 and $50 million team salaries are very soon to be a reality there. We've only got one school that can pay that. That would be lovely if Brett Yormark said that.
Yeah. He's not going to, though.
We got one school that can keep up with what the Big Ten and the SEC are offering in terms of a salary cap. One. He won't say it. He can't say it. Why? Because of the propaganda, because of the company line, because you've got a board of directors, effectively, to keep happy. And I think that's what Greg Sankey is doing. There's no way, except maybe so you can in the South, but logically, there's no way that you can look at the last 3 years of college football and say, yeah, SEC is still by far the best conference. What are you talking about? You just can't.
Like I said, if he had said everything but by far, I wouldn't be near as like, are you kidding me about the? I wouldn't have that near as much that strong reaction, but the by far is what kills me with this.
Now, I guarantee there are SEC fans who believe that wholeheartedly and will say it with their chest. Greg Sankey, I don't believe you. All right, we'll take a quick one here. Remember, Jeremy Wu is going to join us at the top of hour number 3. We have a PGA Tour leaderboard update coming from the Charles Schwab Challenge. That's next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for a quick PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by our friends at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. Great deals happening all up and down the Wasatch Front at Uinta Golf right now. Up to 60% off selected products at your local Uinta Golf stores. Find a store near you today by going to uintagolf.com or worldwidegolfshops.com/Uinta. The most experienced team in golf, Uinta Golf. All right, James, what do you got on our leaderboard update?
Ryan Gerard is your leader at the Charles Schwab Challenge at 6 under. He's tied for the lead with Andrew Putnam. Tied for third, you got the Ryder Cup captain, Keegan Bradley, Alex Smalley, They're among the group, a large group tied for third there at 5 under, one shot off the lead. Tied for 10th, a bunch of guys tied at 4 under. Max Homa, Davis Riley, Hideki Matsuyama, Russell Henley, bunch of guys there tied for 10th at 4 under, just 2 shots off the lead. Tony Finau competing in this one. He's had a rough year so far by his standards, battled injury and some up and down play, but he hasn't been in some of these fields because of that, but he's in this one. He is even through 5 holes. That's good for tied for 72nd. Obviously a lot more left in his first round here. 6 shots off the lead, though, so far. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update, OC, brought to you by You Into Golf.
Free shipping right now on all orders over $99. And let's be honest, if you're going to youintogolf.com and you're trying to get a pair of golf spikes, maybe you're grabbing a club, you're going over $99. You're going to get free shipping, all right? It's just the way things are in the golf world these days. All right, we're going to jump into a little NBA draft discussion. Jeremy Wu, ESPN NBA draft analyst, is going to join us. Are the Jazz going to stay at number 2? If so, who is available there for them to take? Is there any chance A.J. DeBonsa gets passed over by Washington? We'll discuss all of that and more on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Well, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Jeremy Woo, ESPN NBA draft analyst, to chat all things about the upcoming draft, where, of course, your Utah Jazz have, for now, the number 2 overall pick. Jeremy Woo, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, how's it going, man?
You know, we're excited. It's a really interesting time of year with the NBA playoffs coming to an end, NHL playoffs coming to an end, and then we get into an offseason discussion where there's actually some optimism for a Utah Jazz team that has been very short on that in recent years. Hopefully Walker Kessler's situation gets figured out, but then, of course, there's the question of what to do with the number 2 pick in what we think is a very deep draft that has several maybe franchise-changing players. And you've been part of these conversations. You've heard these conversations. It seems like it's A.J. DeBonsa 1, Darren Peterson 2, or maybe, just maybe, a reversal of that. But what is the more likely scenario in your mind when it comes to those top 2 picks?
Yeah, that's something I think it really is a debate. Like, sometimes some of that nuance gets a little bit lost during the season, because we talk about number 1 and then you act like it's definitive, but really it's been a real argument between those guys for a while. So I don't know, I think a lot of people think it'll be AJ number 1, but I wouldn't, I really do think it's kind of a toss-up. And I think Washington has to have a process with that. But as it pertains to the Jazz, I think you feel really good at number 2, just knowing, if those are your top 2 guys, you'll get one, right? I mean, it's like a pretty low stakes place to just sort of sit there and know you'll get one.
Obviously, there's a connection with Utah ownership and A.J. DeBonsa. A significant chunk of the Utah fan base also happens to be BYU fans, so there's an amount of affection they have for A.J. DeBonsa because of that connection. And part of that, leads to a conversation of like, well, hey, if your owner really loves this kid, he's the owner, and he can go down to Austin Ainge's office and say, I want him, do what you have to do to get him. I don't think that's what Ryan Smith is going to do because of the quality of everyone else that is available here. But how much of that is a realistic discussion in the minds of, outsiders? Like, there's no emotional attachment here for most people in your position. Is there any kind of conversation realistically about the Utah Jazz moving up to 1 to guarantee themselves A.J. DeBonsa?
Yeah, well, I think it was kind of interesting. At the Combine, it was something people were discussing, right? But it's so early. They're so early in the process where, like, if there were going to be talks, they haven't started. And if they are going to happen, those things tend to happen, like, later in the process. But it's so rare, just objectively, if you look at the history of it, it's very rare that the top picks ever change hands, period. Those are hard trades to make for a lot of reasons. I think you raised the right point. Like, speculatively, like, is there a scenario where not even just Ryan Smith, but any owner, holding this type of pick could be like, hey, I want to push this button and go do it, right? I mean, yes, the answer to that is theoretically yes, but I think if you look at the big picture, if I'm Utah, it's not something I would do, and I don't think there's really any reason to think they're doing it as of right now. Just again, like, if you just break down the math of it, it's like, yeah, you can have whoever your number 1 player is, or you can have whoever your number 2 player is, plus X, Y, Z, whatever else assets. One thing that's true with the number 1 pick is that the ask is always going to be astronomical just at face value. So just doing that logic, like, to me, it's never been something that's made a ton of sense for Utah. So again, barring some scenario where there'd be a push to do that, like, it would surprise me if that's what happened. But it's part of why it's fun, right?
Because the Jazz are in this position, it's behooves someone in my job or anyone who's passionate about this team and its fan base to say, all right, well, what are these guys supposed to be? And so, you go through, you read every article, you watch as much tape as you can. Both guys played in the Big 12 conference, so we saw a lot of them anyway. But, when it comes to projecting at the next level, we had a Kansas guy on that was like, Darren Peterson is Kobe Bryant. I was like, okay, whoa. And then you'll hear somebody who got close to AJ say, yeah, AJ DeBonsa is going to be a 10-time All-Star in the NBA. And we use these cliches all season long about, oh, wow, deep draft. Wow, franchise-changing draft. Wow, these guys could be foundational pieces of an NBA team. When you look at the top guys, is that how you grade them out? Is that how you see them?
Yeah, I do think the very top of the draft is certainly a strength, right? It's one of the special things about this year's draft. It's just there are multiple guys you would view as real prizes, guys who in most years would be in the number one discussion. And again, you can put Boozer in that group too. A lot of people do. I don't think that's necessarily what will happen, but I think you look at these guys and you can compare to past years, and there are a lot of years where you'd feel really good about any of them. So, and again, you can remember, Cooper Flagg was originally in this class before he reclassified in high school. So this is a class that the NBA teams have been looking forward to for a really long time, and a lot of teams were, preparing for last year and this year for a while. So again, knowing with this lottery reform coming into play moving forward, like this is, a pretty great year to move up. So it's, I think, truly a coup for the Jazz.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. Jeremy Woo is our guest here, ESPN NBA draft analyst. Of course, the Jazz picking number 2 overall. And you mentioned that Boozer is kind of in this same discussion. I probably have been neglecting what should be an obvious question. When we talk about the franchise-changing talent in this draft, how many picks down does that go? Is it just the top 2? Is Boozer there? Is 4, 5, 6 potentially there?
Yeah, to me, it's one of the interesting things has been the way that people's opinions have sort of changed as the year has gone on. And I think there is still some difference of opinion, right? I mean, there are some people who view it through the lens of it's Darren and AJ. There are some people who would put Boozer in that group, and there are some people who think it's the top 4, right, with Caleb Wilson. I do think that's kind of where the drop-off is. Like, it's not, necessarily a huge one, and it kind of depends what you think of the next group of guys with Keaton Wagler. I mean, there are a lot of promising guards in that next bucket of players, but I think if we're talking about the guys who we feel good about being all-stars or beyond, and there's 3 or 4 of those guys. That's what I'd say. But there hasn't really been a true consensus, right? Like, we could say AJ is the favorite for number 1, but I wouldn't say he's the consensus number 1 pick, which is, again, that's why I think it's a debate.
So you got to watch the current NBA playoffs and put whatever happens in this draft against that backdrop. And I find myself chuckling because I'm like, man, the Jazz are going to get AJ or they're going to get Darren Peterson. And I think that guy, whoever it is, might spend his entire career wishing that Victor Wembanyama didn't exist in the Western Conference. And, the Jazz went through this 30 years ago with Michael Jordan being alive, and you had 2 top 50 players in NBA history on the same team together for 2 decades, and they could never get over the hump, unfortunately, because they coincided with some of Jordan's best years. Yes, these are young, incredibly talented players, and yes, I think the Jazz have made really good moves with the trade to bring in Jaren Jackson Jr., et cetera. But when you see, Washington where they are, Utah where they are, and you see what the rest of the league looks like, I mean, how much more is it going to take, even for a Utah Jazz team, to get into the same conversation as Oklahoma City and San Antonio right now?
Yeah, well, look, I think you make a good point. I think there is the existential crisis facing a lot of the NBA about, what do you do with this guy for the next 10, 15 years? But, that's something that I think also to your point, this is a cycle. There's always going to be, 2 or 3 dominant guys, and those teams are going to dominate. But if you look at how OKC and San Antonio got there, right? Like, how did they get to this position that they're in? It's because they were patient. It's because they had a process, and they did a really good job of, evaluating on the margins, right? Like, they're, OKC in particular is a different thing. What they've done is probably the biggest, like, large scale, every level, hitting on all these different picks. But, like, I think you look at what Utah's doing. I think they had a good amount of foresight with the trades they made, right? They're positioning themselves to at least take a step forward next year, and that's all you can do. And then you get the lottery luck, which you hope for. And, I think it's about as well as the plan could go to this point, right? So I think it's something a lot of teams deal with, and I also think if you think too hard about it, it's probably a little depressing. But you know, you got to find a way to beat them. I think that's part of the challenge and fun of what what teams do. You know, you're always trying to beat the best.
Jeremy, I dang near threw a party on the air when the results of the NBA Player Anonymous poll came out about what place do you not want to go play, and Memphis had like 30% of the respondents saying I don't want to be in Memphis, and for the Utah Jazz, the percentage, they were like fifth worst, I guess, in the league, if for lack of a better way to put that. Where of course we've been, self-conscious about battling the narrative. Nobody wants to be in Salt Lake City. This is not a good NBA city, right? There's no black culture in Utah, and a lot of the best players in the league are just not going to fit in well there. They're not going to like it there. No free agents want to go there. And, that is a question about an upcoming draft where one of the guys already likes the state, family already lives here in the state, high school and college in the state. Another guy, it's more of a question mark. We don't really know. And number 3, by the way, was born in the dang state. So it's like, does that matter in today's NBA, in your opinion?
So you're asking just the question of like comfort level?
Well, like,
yeah, I mean,
is it something that you should consider if you're the Ainges and you're in that Jazz front office and you're like, man, we really love Darren Peterson, and we hope that he will come to Utah like Ace Bailey did and realize he likes Utah. But these other 2 guys, Cam Boozer has very obvious connections here. His dad works for the team. And A.J. DeBonsa has very obvious connections here. And, again, change the calculus on what you want to do with that pick because from a sustainability standpoint of keeping somebody here after you draft them.
Oh, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, I don't think so. I think for me, like, just my opinion is, I think you just got to pick who you want. You got to take the best guy because the future is so unpredictable, right? Like, I think winning cures a lot of things, but also, there are plenty of instances where, historically, like, you hope a guy doesn't leave, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing is if you don't win, that's when players tend to get itchy, right? So it's, I don't know. Did anyone think LeBron was going to leave Cleveland, in 2003 when he got there and, it's his hometown team, right? So, like, eventually we know what happened, but, like, there's just no way to predict the future, and that's my point. So, like, yes, it's like a nice bonus, but I think you're just taking who you want, just because I think it would be probably the wrong way to approach such a high value franchise change and pick.
ESPN NBA draft analyst Jeremy Woo for a couple more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We were talking earlier about the players that had to make a decision last night about whether they're going to come back to college hoops or they're going to stay through this NBA draft process and hopefully hear their names called, and how different that process is now than it was 5 or 10 years ago because of the big fat NIL figures attached with the top players that, might be mid first round, late first round, second round picks. It's kind of a no-brainer now to come back because if you're that good of a college basketball player, St. John's wants to pay you $5 million. Kentucky wants to pay you $4 million. Arizona is going to give you a couple of cars and a house or whatever. And just, I know you were tweeting about this and taking a look at this. Were there any surprises for you of the guys that were kind of on that borderline, either staying in the draft process or making the announcement that they're going back to college hoops?
As far as the decisions from yesterday, actually, not really. I think it kind of went the way I was expecting, just based off of what I was hearing and sort of where players' stocks were. Like for context, I was looking at this morning. Like on my last top 100 rankings, like the 2 highest players who went back, and this is following the combine, were ranked 29 and 30. Right, so that gives you an idea. Like I think a lot of guys who feel like they're in the first, like, still want to go pro. There were some decisions earlier in the process, guys like Thomas Houck and Berlin Mullins, who are going to be, big earners and be stars in college again next year, and then try to move up in 27 draft, right? But it really has changed the calculus, and all in all, I think 25 to 30 guys who I viewed as like top 100 players went back. So I don't think the NBA really minds this, to be honest. Like I think it's you get more time to evaluate guys. They tend to be more ready when they come to the pros. The players have to learn how to manage their money earlier, right? Like sometimes, in the past, historically can be a pitfall for, teenage NBA players. So I think on a lot of levels, it's okay for the NBA. But it has changed the draft, and it's definitely takes away from sort of the depth in that middle of the draft, so 20 to 45.
Well, I was going to ask you if that this trend has changed the way that the pre-draft process and the evaluation, and specifically the communication that teams have with the folks helping these players make their decisions. Because if you're an NBA guy who's like, you know what, I'm willing to deal with the 18-year-old kid who's bad with his money, so I have a couple extra years with him so I can develop him. And then there's probably a lot of people in the NBA who are just like, I would rather not mess with that so that I can focus on the task at hand here, and I'll let them develop and make their mistakes while they're still in college. Because now this is a much more viable thing, and it is much more viable for players to go back and make NBA-level money in college basketball. Has the communication style, transparency at all changed to your knowledge when it comes to a team's role in helping these players decide what to do?
I don't think so. I think it benefits teams to have good relationships with agents and vice versa. So I do think there's a lot of helpful feedback that goes both directions as players make these decisions. Some of this just bears out in different ways with the combine and different evaluation settings. And again, remember, teams are bringing in guys behind the scenes for workouts. They've been doing it for a few weeks. Each team is a little bit different with how they approach it, but at the end of the day, like, these guys will end up with enough feedback to make the right call. But again, having this, for most guys, this financial parachute of, hey, I can go back, I can go to college, I can make really good money. Some guys can do it for multiple years. And again, like, point guards and centers are probably the things that are most valuable and hard to find in college. Like, those guys can really, really make a really good type of change before they turn pro. So I think it's good all around. We'll see. This landscape seems to always be changing, so we'll see. If it's able to sort of stay this way in terms of the dollar figures, but I do think it's been overall positive.
Who do you think wins tonight between San Antonio and Oklahoma City?
I think San Antonio forces Game 7.
Let's go. That's what we need, right? That's what we want. I'm fascinated with San Antonio because obviously, there's a proximity thing here with the Utah Jazz, and I think that they are going to be the team that stands in the way of some significant development for a Utah Jazz franchise that is now desperate to try winning again. But Victor Wembanyama is just impossible for me to root against. Is he taking a little bit more of a heel turn in this series? Maybe ordering a hit on an OKC player, skipping some media. Like, is he shaking off a little bit of the universally loved Boy Scout image in this series?
I wouldn't go that far. I think the guy's competitive, like, knowing him a little bit. I think it all comes from the right place of competitiveness with him. And again, this is a really his first, like, true huge test on the stage, and I think it's exciting and interesting to watch him sort of solve this puzzle to me. So I've been enjoying just sort of watching him experience this, and the guy's obviously such a talent. So I'm excited to see what happens.
We've been making a big deal in these last few days about the flopping, the foul merchant sort of reputation of now a two-time MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I guess by extension that whole OKC team. And you go back, like, it was Dwayne Wade who was the poster boy for this when the NBA was putting in their anti-flopping fines and things like that. I don't think anything serious came of that. I don't think it was really enforced. Obviously, we're still seeing it happen a lot in the game. Is it something that the NBA is going to have to look at the way they did the tanking thing?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't have a strong flopping take. Like, honestly, man, people have been flopping for 30 years, man. Like, I remember being a kid watching, like, Reggie Miller and Vlade and Manu, and, like, these dudes have all been doing it. It's not new. It's part of the game. It's gamesmanship. I'm not a referee. I'm not going to pretend that I have an expert take on how they should officiate these things. But to me, I think it's part of sports, and people are always going to hate it, but it's going to always be part of it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. Appreciate you giving us some time today. We'll check in again right around draft time if that works for you.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
That's Jeremy Woo, ESPN NBA draft analyst. Some good thoughts there on what the Jazz may or may not do, and, of course, the strength of this class. Really interesting when you talk about a deep draft class, right? What we're really talking about is deep lottery class. Because guys in the lottery are staying in the draft. They're staying in the lottery. What we are learning is that folks with the decision between kind of pick 20 to 30 in that first round, it's a real decision to make now. I mean, your agent has to be like, okay, you're going to be pick number 25. It's right around $3 million. And then you, as a player, are probably going, well, I want to be a pro now. I don't want to have a class load. I don't want to be in college anymore. I want to go play alongside, the LeBron Jameses of the world before he's gone from the NBA. So maybe I'm going to jump in. But it's not like there's a negligible difference between $3 million of salary and potentially up to $5 million of NIL money from some of these big-time basketball blue bloods. If you're a top 15 player in college hoops coming out of the 2025 season, you're going to the NBA draft. If you're number 16 through 30, you don't know if you are, because the money might actually be better coming back to college. Do you know how crazy that is? It's not that way in football. We've been through this. We've talked about this. If you're a first-round draft pick in football, it's a no-brainer that you're going to the NFL draft, because the NIL money in football, unless you are a quarterback who's going to like Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, the money is just not the same. Yeah, you can get paid $1 million, $2 million, maybe even $3 million as an offensive tackle, but most guys in the NFL, it's a no-brainer to go to the draft if you're anything above middle of the third round. We're talking about middle of the first round in the NBA. That's how big NIL money has gotten in college hoops. It's a small sample. It's a tiny little group of guys that garner that level of money, but guess who they are? They're the guys that are the middle of the first round in the NBA.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why NIL money is so much higher is because there's less players, right?
Yeah.
We heard this narrative about when it seemed like a lot more money was being spent on BYU basketball players than BYU football players over this past year, 18 months. That's been talked about, and a lot of the people that are donating to the NIL collectives and the NIL pool are saying, well, I can donate this much to help AJ Bonta get here, and BYU could win the Big 12, which obviously didn't happen, but that was the thought. I could spend the same amount of money on getting Bear Bachmeier here, and BYU might be fifth in the Big 12, right? Like there's so many more variables with football than basketball. And basketball, It just seems like you get the best player, you have a chance to win big. Football, it's not necessarily the case. So there's that. A lot less players. You got to think about, as far as their decision whether to stay or not based on where they are in the first round. NBA has guaranteed contracts except for if you're a second-round pick. So that's also a big thing. Like if you are, like Jeremy said, his 29th and 30th ranked guys on his own big board, late first round kind of thing, those guys going back to school, they're like, well, I may not get a guaranteed contract. My agent doesn't like that. Let's get a guaranteed contract to stay through NIL in college instead.
Arizona has, coming back next year, they've got Karchenkov and Krivas, and they're losing Braden Burries, and they're losing Koa Pete. And so they're like, all right, well, we have two of three really important pieces in it. Like, you don't have to have 5 elite starters in college hoops. It's not realistic to get those. You want them. It's not realistic to get that, right? So they're just like, okay, we got to get another. 2's not enough. We got to get another elite player. And if they get that, they're once again at or near the top of the college basketball conference, at least in the Big 12. They're a tournament team at the very least, right? Which I know is not enough at Arizona, but I think you understand my point. If you, to the point that you were just making, if you're BYU and you're like, all right, boom, we got LJ Martin and we got Bear Bachmeier, like all we need is one more guy, and then no, you need 21 more guys. It's just different math. Pretty wild what's happening with the NBA draft. It is a deep draft at the top, and now the middle and bottom of that first round and the whole second round is missing the guys that in previous years would be there, because those guys are going back for another year of college. They will be there next year, and their hope is that they will be lottery picks next year. And even if they're not, even if they don't develop a ton, they'll probably be there next year because they're like, all right, well, I'm going to go in now because I don't want to delay. I don't want to be the old draft pick. I don't want to be the 22-year-old in the NBA, heaven forbid. You're supposed to be in your third year by then.
Yeah, at some point, players feel like they have to eventually leave college in that guaranteed big NIL payday because they need to just start their pro career, even if they're going to take less money.
Diego Pavia didn't feel this way in the NFL, but like basketball players mostly in this category do feel like, all right, well, I got to get this started at some point, especially because of the way that NBA contracts work, right? That first contract is nice. That second contract, like that's why Cooper Flagg reclassified.
Yeah.
Because they were just like, we're gonna get to this second escalator. We're gonna get to that a year earlier.
He's gonna be, before he's 23 years old, he's gonna have like a gigantic payday, even compared to like Donovan Mitchell a little bit of a generation ago now, it seems like, got in his second contract.
He is going to be, him and Wemby and these guys, like Wemby's probably going to be the first one that's a billionaire from his basketball salary, but by the time Cooper Flagg is 32, he's going to have made $1 billion from NBA salary.
If everything continues the way his stellar rookie season went, if that trajectory continues to go up like that, it seems less likely than Wemby in that regard, because Wemby just seems like this guaranteed megastar. And Cooper Flagg is like a little bit less of a guaranteed megastar, but if that trajectory stays the same, you're absolutely right. He could be, before he turns 35, he could have $1 billion in NBA salary like that, and we wouldn't be surprised.
Endorsements.
Yeah, we wouldn't be surprised.
Not counting Space Jam 3.
Another generation. Wasn't that what was the Space Jam 2?
You know what? I have not seen it yet.
I haven't either. I was like kind of excited for it because I love the original, but I also knew it wasn't going to be as good. So anyway, I just haven't
Watched it. Sorry, guys. All right, another PGA Tour leaderboard update coming your way. Remember, in topical trivia, we're going to give away a free round of golf, courtesy of Sun Hills, the Utah Golf Association, and Mountain Home Services. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by our friends at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. The Charles Schwab Challenge, James. What's the latest?
Let's see. Your leader is, I believe, still Ryan Gerard. Yep, he is tied with Andrew Putnam at 6 under. A host of guys tied for third. One shot off the lead at 5 under. Brian Harmon, the Ryder Cup captain, Keegan Bradley in that group, or at least former Ryder Cup captain. Alex Smalley in there as well. Tied for 11th. You got guys like Max Homa, Davis Riley, Hideki Matsuyama, Russell Henley, Ryu Hisatsune. Bunch of guys tied for 11th there. Tony Finau, let's see if he's improved at all. Let's see. He's through 8, still even. Moved up a couple of spots on the leaderboard, even though he hasn't moved down in his score there. Tied for 70th now. Through 8, still got 10 holes to go. A lot of time left to improve that. 6 shots off the lead, though. So far, tied for 70th. That's Tony Finau. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by Uinta Golf.
Right now, the Father's Day gifts are being put out on display. They've got the special menu of Father's Day gifts, just like they did with the Mother's Day stuff. Uinta Golf is now getting you ready for the upcoming Father's Day celebration with some great deals on watches, on bags, on putters, on balls, of course, the golf shoes, incredible deals on apparel all over the place. Worldwide Golf is the parent site, but it's Uinta Golf. You go to the local stores up and down the Wasatch Front, tell them you heard about it on the Sean O'Connell Show, and grab yourself, maybe a new club, maybe a sleeve of balls, and say you're there for Dad, but treat yourself while you're getting something for Father's Day.
Maybe you go, well, I mean, I'm a dad. This is my Father's Day gift.
Yeah, like, even if you're not a dad yet, maybe someday I'll be a dad.
I could buy something for myself in honor. I'll think about my dad as I buy this club.
I'm only 13, but maybe someday I'll be a dad, you know?
I thought really hard about my dad as I bought this driver for myself today. Thank you, Dad.
So my dad doesn't golf. It would actually be funny for me to get my dad, like go to Uinta Golf and get my dad something and just be like, here, Dad, now you can golf. He'd be like, what am I supposed to do with this? But you know what he would do? He would use it. I could literally make my dad go golf just so he didn't waste a gift that one of his kids had given him.
Is he – hold on. Am I reading into this right? Is he where you get your frugality from? Like, hey, I don't want to – is that why he wouldn't waste something like that? Someone spent money on this, so I better use it.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
My dad was not raised in the Great Depression, but he acts like he was. He's always done pretty well for himself, and, I'm proud of my dad for building us a nice life. However, my dad acted like we were a bill away from the poorhouse, that we were going to get just like kicked out on the street if we spent too much on like a pair of cleats. He just had that sensibility about him, like rainy day, save up for it, let's go.
And now your daughters in 20 years when they're on the radio or whatever, they can say that's exactly how my dad was too.
My dad was a total cheapskate. Yeah, they'll be able to say that about me. But my dad, because he just can't stand, like I can't stand wasting food, my dad can't stand wasting anything. If I was like, Dad, here's a sleeve of golf balls, he's like, well, great, now I have to golf. I have to go use these. So if you want your dad to golf, if you're golfing and your dad doesn't golf and you want your dad to golf, just go buy him some golf stuff at Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf. This is something I wanted to sneak into the Daily Dump. We didn't talk about it much because it's, I think, kind of silly, but the enhanced games. All right? The enhanced games are a new thing from Max Martin, where you're allowed to take steroids, you're allowed to blood dope, you're allowed to take stimulants, you're allowed to do all the things you're not allowed to do in regular international competition, professional competition, whatever, with the idea behind this being, all right, so we're going to see what the human body is truly capable of with all the miracles of modern technology and pharmaceutical and things like that. So you saw some athletes that you recognize, that you know, trying to break records in these enhanced games. You saw some people that you've never heard of that were just, juicing themselves onto a world stage. And one of the things that was offered by this enhanced games was, if you come into the enhanced games and you break an Olympic world record, or you break an official world record while you're enhanced, while you're using performance-enhancing drugs, we will still give you, if you break a world record, we'll give you $1 million. And so a bunch of people are like, that's easy. I'm already a very fast swimmer. I'm going to go take a bunch of juice, and I'm going to end up being the fastest swimmer in the world. And by the way, I did see some of the highlights. I watched little brief snippets of this. You could easily see the difference between, like, even elite Olympic swimmers. I'm talking Michael Phelps, and elite swimmers that are also on gear. Their bodies are different. You know how Olympic swimmers, college swimmers, they all have that, like, sort of, there's a ton of muscle, but it's not like bulging muscle. They don't have striations visible most of the time. They've got this very broad, like, stingray back, but it doesn't look like an Olympic wrestler's back. It doesn't look like a bodybuilder's back. Well, that's how it looked in the enhanced games, right? Guys with their traps popping up and busting their one-piece swimsuits. Only one world record was broken at the enhanced games. Former Olympic sprinter Fred Curley juiced and tried to break Usain Bolt's record. He came up short. That was one of the most, like, prominent of the competitions. Hey, what happens when you let people take performance-enhancing drugs and then chase these world records? The 50-meter freestyle swim, was the only world record that was broken. That's once down the pool. That is a sprint. That was the $1 million record broken. So guess what happens with the enhanced games? They're doubling down. They're actually not doubling down. They're 10xing down. Next year, enhanced games, if you can break Usain Bolt's world record in the 100-meter dash, it's a $10 million prize. Instead of $1 million, it's 10. I guess the thinking is, well, you guys didn't do enough steroids. You weren't juicing enough. You weren't doping enough. So we're now going to tell you, go do more, and we'll give you even more money if you're capable of doing it. I actually loved finding out that the enhanced games did not yield a bunch of world record results. I love that. Like, yeah. Steroids, they make you better. They make you stronger. They make you faster. We know this. We've seen it multiple times. But it proved that these elite athletes, the true difference, like the elite athletes, are so special that even an above-average human being with pharmaceutical help cannot outperform them.
Any chance Barry Bonds' former agent or somebody in his group are like, hold on, hey, did you see this? You should let me in the Hall of Fame now, because it doesn't help that much. Do you see? You see the enhanced games?
Well, that's actually one of the things that people use against Barry Bonds all the time. It's like, dude, you were a Hall of Fame player before you ever got involved in this.
What do you have? He had at least 400 homers, I want to say, before his body started to, like, just completely get out of proportion.
Mark McGwire maybe needed it.
He did it way earlier in his career, yeah.
Mark McGwire maybe would not have ever been Mark McGwire without that. He was already a good player, but he maybe would have never been like a star, a topic of conversation without that, right? Barry Bonds was going to be a Hall of Fame baseball player. And then he took steroids and he hit more home runs than anyone's ever hit. And people are just like, yeah, but dude, like, look what you did.
Like, why did you do that? Doesn't make any sense. A-Rod, similar, although he did it earlier in his career than Bonds did too, but that he had the makings of, you had everything you need to be a Hall of Fame player without this. Why go to this?
I also think it's hilarious that people think that just offering that the organizers of this event think that upping the ante, 10xing the prize money, saying, well, okay, I will give you $10 million. All you have to do is be faster than the fastest man in the history of the world. It's like, yeah, okay. That's not possible. I don't care.
We're going to let you potentially ruin your body with all these drugs.
I could take every peptide, growth hormone, steroid, testosterone enhancement that the human race has ever been aware of. I could inject all of it into my body, and I could sprint all day, every day from now until the next enhanced games, and there's still no chance in hell that I would run faster than Usain Bolt. It's just not. There's like a body mechanics issue here. I love what they're doing. It's grabbing a headline. It's making me talk about it. But the fact that they're just like, all right, 10 million to the first man who becomes the fastest man ever.
Maybe it was a motivation problem. No, I don't know if they weren't motivated.
If somebody walks up to you and is just like, I'll give you $10 million, you just have to dunk over Victor Wembanyama. You're like, man, I really want that $10 million, but that is not physically possible.
It's not attainable.
I can't even dunk. How am I supposed to do it over Wemby?
Hold on. He's going to try to defend me? Yeah, NBA game. Wait, what? Do you realize what you're asking me to do?
Now, what I would love to see, you bring in these enhanced games athletes, all right? And you bring in Usain Bolt, as he is now, current Usain Bolt.
Yeah, not prime Usain Bolt.
Not 9.58 Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
And you just say, all right.
Can you beat me?
I will give you $1 million if you can beat Usain Bolt.
That's what they should be doing.
You're juicing. He's not. Can you beat him? Usain Bolt gets paid $1 million just to show up and run the race. You get all or nothing. I will give you nothing if you can't beat him. I will give you $10 million if you can.
That's what they should be doing. They should be. Everyone's always asking. It's a popular question on Sports Talk Radio. You hear Dan Patrick ask it all the time to former NBA players. Could Michael Jordan beat, recently retired player one-on-one today? Could you beat Michael Jordan one-on-one today? He asked Jamal Crawford this recently, and Jamal Crawford said, I think he's like, yeah, I could beat him today. Couldn't have beat him when I was in my prime and he was recently retired. He probably would have beat me. But that's what, we need to have 60-something-year-old Michael Jordan going up against juiced former college basketball player number one.
Remember Spike TV? Spike TV did a show called Pros versus Joes.
Love Pros versus Joes.
It's just that with slightly younger pros.
And steroids.
And steroided Joes. Okay? Yeah. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Enhanced games, give me that, and I will actually watch.
Pros versus Juiced Joes.
Yes. Juicy Joes. And you could get it sponsored. There's a company, there's a coffee shop called Joe and the Juice, or a juice bar called Joe and the Juice. Boom. They sponsor. You're golden. I just paid for the whole thing. Let's go. Because it is wonderful. It's the same reason I want to see a control subject, like you bring in someone, the average person, not even average, bring in like a mid-level normal person athlete to participate in every Olympic event. Just so that you're like, oh, wow. The ninth place guy in the 100-meter dash still beat the regular dude by 20 meters. Just give us a control group at the Olympics, and certainly with these enhanced games, let's spice it up a little bit.
There's no way that would demean the Olympics in any way. If you threw me out there in the 100 meters to be the control group.
It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be someone like us who's out of shape.
Yeah, someone maybe a low-level college track.
Here's what I want. I want D2 college athlete.
There you go.
All right. Oh,
D2 college sprinter.
Here. You know what you do? This is Big 12 Conference. Brett Yormark. This is how you make some money.
There we go.
Okay? You just go to the Big 12 and you get Big 12 athletes and you say, all right, our control group for the Olympics is Big 12 sprinter, Big 12 swimmer, Big 12 volleyball, Big 12 whatever. they're going to be there. And they're competing, okay?
Yeah.
If they magically win, it's the greatest story
they
ever.
get the medal. Yeah.
But what we're really going to see is how it is when we're talking about this person is already way better of an athlete than all of you out there watching. That's why they're on scholarship at Baylor University.
Put them in like a red penny or something so that it's like, so we all know that guy's not a serious competitor.
Make him wear the ugly helmet thing that they have on scout team. No. All right, we got to take a break. I'll give away some free golf to Sun Hills next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, Crosstalk brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products. $2,500 off 10 windows or more. 801-850-9100. Give them a call. Tell them OC sent you. Lifetime warranty on those windows. We have free golf to give away to Sun Hills, courtesy of the Utah Golf Association, Mountain Home Services, and our Festival of Tees. 877-353-0700. If you could tell me the all-time NBA playoff leader in blocked shots. We talked about this earlier on the show. 877-353-0700. Which NBA player had more blocked shots in playoff history than anyone else during their careers? Broadway Media partnering with the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation for the Hope for Mental Health Radiothon tomorrow. Tune in all day, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, plus ESPN The Fan, and actually all other Broadway media stations. You can donate also by going to yourbrainisbeautiful.org. We're doing the Radiothon tomorrow. Looking forward to that, but just a reminder for you. The Drive with Spence Checketts is next, and he is actually here in our Broadway studio. Hi, Spence.
Hello, Sean. How are you?
Great.
$10 million to be the fastest person in the world? What? Unpack that a little more. I caught that as I was coming in.
The enhanced games. You heard about these enhanced games?
I have heard about the enhanced games.
That weird guy that steals blood from his son to try to stay young. He's involved.
Yep.
And the enhanced games, they allow you to take steroids to do EPO for your blood doping, human growth hormone, whatever. And they're trying to push the limits of human performance beyond what we're seeing in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And they offered $1 million to people who could break standing world records. One swimmer beat the 50-meter freestyle record and ended up getting a little over $1 million plus, sponsorships and things like that. Christian Gokhlemiev.
No, probably not. But.
Won the 50-meter freestyle with a time of 20.81 seconds, which is better than anyone's ever swam it before. And they're really trying to draw attention by creating a world's fastest man with these enhanced Olympics, or enhanced games, I should say. So they went from a $1 million prize offer to said, all right, nobody did it. $10 million if you can beat 9.58 in the 100, which, of course, is the Usain Bolt world record.
And you're allowed to take whatever you want to assist in this endeavor.
Yeah.
What's this guy? What's the guy's name who's claiming he's trying to live forever? He's all over. It's Brian Johnson, right?
Yes.
That dude
not
is
the former Utah quarterback.
Shout out BJ.
Not the AC/DC lead singer.
Another good pull. 48-year-old multimillionaire entrepreneur spends $2 million a year on this radical data this anti-aging program called Project Blueprint.
Can I tell you?
He is so freaking distirbing. He's all
so
over my
weird.
Instagram algorithm selling some powdered drink.
He's so scary. Can I tell you, I saw a blip of the enhanced games. Can't remember where I was. And he was on the television, and he's sitting on a regular sort of ESPN desk. It's outside at the enhanced games. He's under an umbrella because he's one of these people, he's a Nicole Kidman. He's a vampire, doesn't want the sun damaging his porcelain skin. So he's on television just committing to the bit, I can't let the sun touch me if I'm going to live forever.
I guess his desired goal is to live to the year 2140. He's on record saying he wants to live. Honestly, I don't wish ill will on anybody. If homeboy ran into an issue in 2 weeks, and they're like, sorry, pal, your time has come. Because every time I see a video of his, first of all, he does not look or sound like a real human person. And there's a pretentious approach to this entire thing, believing that because you have money, you can basically do things that fly in the face of science. Because the other funny thing that's out there is there are all these neuroscientists and nutritionists that just refute the things that he's doing. It's these actually aren't things that are necessarily going to help you live forever. Do you know where he's from?
No.
Brian Johnson. Again, not former U quarterback. He went to BYU.
No.
This dude's an LDS guy.
Stop it.
He went to BYU.
No, he didn't.
Yes,
Stop
he did.
it.
Why does that not surprise me at all? I honestly did not know that until this moment.
Which MLM did he found?
That's where I was going next. He was born in Provo, Utah. He went to BYU, and then I got an MBA at the University of Chicago. I got to look up. Born in Provo, Utah, raised in Springville. He's LDS. This dude he went on a mission to Ecuador and graduated from BYU. You cannot make this stuff
he's
up.
48. He went on a mission to Ecuador?
Yeah.
What am I? Okay, I'm gonna find out more about this guy.
Why is the Ecuador thing?
I have a good friend in that same age group who served his mission in Ecuador. There's no way they didn't overlap.
Of course, Brian Johnson went to BYU. And how has he not turned this in
Well, you know what the
to an MLM at
you know
this
what the
point?
other funny thing about it is? Like, whatever, weirdo, do your eternal life pursuit. But when you look at the oldest people that have ever existed on the planet, right? When you see that, like the oldest woman in the world died this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's never some multi-millionaire. It's always some like Filipino lady who lives in a jungle and has been eating the same meal every day for 140 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's always some old man from like a small island off the coast of Japan who has just been like, yeah, I've been smoking cigarettes for a century.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
how did you live to be 138?
My friend's grandma lived until like 98, and she crushed heaters, loved cigarettes, and her favorite food, bacon sandwiches. Every morning, she's smoking cigarettes, just crushing bacon on the reg.
This is not an endorsement for poor health practices, but it's when you look at the actual evidence of the people who have lived forever, it's not the people who are going and getting their plasma cleaned out in an external machine that costs $2 million a year. It's literally always, oh, look, this old man in Turkey who has never seen a television.
Right.
Here's his birth certificate from 1871. And you're like, oh, wow.
So lesson learned, don't waste your time on all these fads, because everyone's trying to sell you something anyway. I'm telling you, this Brian Johnson dude is all over my Instagram feed. All you need is one scoop of my... I'm like, shut up, you charlatan. Look, I love learning about this in real time. So our guy
Porter just said, another famous Brian Johnson, the Liver King.
Shout out that guy. Well, not really, because he was kind of a fraud as well, right?
He's actually terrible, and I've never met a human who smells worse.
So you've met this man?
Yeah, he came to a PFL event in New York City.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's learn a little bit more about our boy here. Okay, Brian Johnson, who claims he's going to live until the year 2140, LDS BYU dude. Of course he did. Johnson launched 3 startups between 1999 and 2003, of course. The first sold cell phones and helped pay his way through BYU. He hired other university students to sell service plans and cell phones, earned $300 commission on each sale. He started 2 other businesses. One is called Inquist, because of course it is. A Volp company, whatever that is, combined with other partners, Vonage and Skype, ended operations in 2001. And then he started a real estate venture with his brother and another partner. And then that didn't go well. Founded Braintree in 2007. These BYU charlatans, dude, these Alpha Con, come learn how to sell, and I'm going to take millions of dollars from you. So Braintree, 47th on Inc. magazine's 2011 list. Braintree purchased Venmo, an app of, obviously we know what Venmo is. So apparently this is just a way you can pay other people like Venmo and PayPal. $12 billion in payments annually. Yeah.
Can I be honest about something?
What's that?
I still don't know how Venmo makes money. Because when I send somebody $10 on Venmo, they get all $10.
Yeah, and the only way...
And they don't charge me anything to send it.
If you transfer it to your bank immediately, they charge you like 2%, but wait 3 days and don't take the fee.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not that hard.
I'm an idiot, but I don't know how Venmo is a profitable company.
I don't either. Founded the OS Fund. All this stuff sounds so sketchy, Provo illegal.
Well, hey, if he's involved with Venmo, we use Venmo. All right, Brian Johnson, thanks for Venmo.
Founded Kernel in 2016, building hardware that measures electrical and hemodynamic signals produced by the brain. This guy is a liar, dude. Unbelievable.
Hemodynamic signals sounds like something you make up when you're trying to tell a kid. You're trying to explain something to a kid, but you don't know the real reason.
Yes.
Wait, why is that? Oh, it's hemodynamics. You wouldn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Need more retina in my medicine. The New York Times is currently investigating his use of confidentiality agreements from former employees to control his public image. This guy is a fraud. Of course he is. Not a fan.
But he wears an umbrella on TV.
He's so creepy.
At the enhanced game.
He does not look like a human, and he doesn't sound like a human.
It's from Springville?
And based off of my quick research, he sounds just like another charlatan liar. They created. Why can't we create a company that just generates billions of dollars without really doing much of anything? It seems like that's all it is. Are all these things Ponzi schemes?
Not all of them.
Feels like a lot of them are.
That's why I said not all of them.
These pyramid schemes, dude. Did you ever get recruited to participate in a pyramid scheme?
Yes.
Does it? Who buys into it? Who's like, yeah, that's a good idea. So basically, I just give you like 10 grand.
Yeah.
And you get the bulk of it. And then if I get somebody to give me 10 grand, I get the bulk of it. Then they find somebody to give them 10 grand.
And I get some of that too.
Yes. It's just like,
yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's a long-standing tradition of those. Like Utah is the capital of those things.
It is. And about 40 miles down south seems to be the hub. I had no idea this guy was a BYU.
I had
bro.
no idea either. I'm sad about the vampire connection to BYU. You're not supposed to have vampires down there.
Is Brian Johnson involved in BYU NIL with his Live Forever scheme?
No, because you actually have to have money to be giving it to NIL.
Uh-huh.
Right? You can't just be like one of these dudes who takes pictures on a private jet that you rented.
Yep.
Like my guy B Wags. Shout out.
Shout out B Wags. I don't know who that is.
Oh, you don't know about Wag Capital?
No, and I don't know that I want to.
I'm going to give you the brief cliff notes here.
Okay.
Exactly what you think. Guy was a solid football player, but built an entire brand identity, like motivational speaking, all this stuff, on achieving the dream he made, the goal he set out for himself when he was a little kid of playing in a Rose Bowl. And then it was exposed further down the line. He was on a Washington State team. He was on a BYU football team. He was on a Washington State team that ended up going to the Rose Bowl while he was on his mission.
Oh.
And he was like, yeah, he literally like did motivational speaking standing in front of hundreds of people talking about how he achieved his dream of playing in a Rose Bowl. And then when it all came crashing down, the investigative reporters were just like went and talked to his former coaches at Washington State. Like, did he play in the Rose Bowl? And they're like, oh, no, he was on the team, and then he went on his mission, and then we went to the Rose Bowl.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he played at BYU. He was a good player.
And he's a friend of yours?
No.
Oh, you said my guy B-Wags.
Yeah, because my guy.
Yeah,
they're all my guys, right?
Wags Capital.
Wags Capital.
It sounds like...
Right down at the point of the mountain, it was a building right off I-15, had a lion logo, and it's gone now.
Is he still down there, point of the mountain, just in a different building? Did our guy get put behind
that
bars?
Building is not there anymore either.
Oh, they moved the jail. Did not know that.
Spence Checketts really doesn't go south of 2100 because that has been
no clue.
They tore that thing down 2 years ago.
Mill Creek is Springville, dude. I know nothing about that part of our state outside of all these charlatans need to be stopped. These liars. Okay, they're selling. And the worst ones are the ones that prey on young men that are just trying to get through life, just trying to figure things out. It's like, this is how you become a better bro. All you have to do is pay me $9.99 a week. I'm going to walk you through how to get through this portion of your life. And when you're done with my program, you're going to be a better man. Liars, all of them.
I had a former teammate. I hadn't heard from him in a long time. Got a text after 10 years of no contact. Got a text.
You maximizing?
Hey, bro, how you doing? I was like, oh, my gosh, good to hear from you. What's going on? Just, everything's good. Are you good right now, or would you be interested in making more money?
There
I'm
it
like,
is.
Get out of here.
There it is.
No, I don't want to make more money. I'm not interested in that. Thank you.
Take my course on how to manifest your reality using visual techniques proven over time. Shut up, liars.
MLM Radio here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
Shout out Brian Johnson.
Stay tuned for The Drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow.